committee members, board of trustees, teachers, administrators, Mr. Santos, and district staff. I'd like to go ahead and call the meeting to order. It is 6:06 p.m. today, the 16th day of July, 2013. And I call this Citizens Bond Committee meeting to order. Ms. Bruni, could you start, please, by calling roll for the steering committee?
Richard Morales.
Present.
Sylvia Bruni. Patty San Miguel, absent. Joey Leon. Present. Laura Montemayor. Natalie, absent. Cesar Redondo. Present. And Lalo Uribe.
Thank you. And I'll ask everyone to please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, the Texas Pledge, and a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right. We'll move on to agenda item number 2, approval of the minutes. We'll go ahead and table that till the end of the meeting because we're waiting for circulation of the minutes. And move on to number 3, which is our opening comments period. Before I start, let me say that we're going to go through some presentations today, and we're going to allow questions and comments after each individual presentation. So there'll be actually 3 opportunities for public comments from the committee today. But let's go ahead and get started with the agenda item number 3, opening comments. Persons who are committee members wishing to comment publicly can do so during this portion of the meeting. We're going to have them designated at the beginning and at the end. We ask that no presentation exceed 3 persons on any side of the issue, nor shall the time exceed 10 minutes. Any delegations of more than 3 persons shall appoint 1 person to present their views. For those that are not committee members, please be advised that the Board of Trustees will have a standing agenda item on their regular board meetings, at which time they will be allowed to make public comments on the proposed bond from any citizen. Okay, so we have some microphones set up throughout the room. And so at this time, I'll ask anyone from the committee that wants to make a public comment to go ahead and stand up and come to the microphone. Anyone? Okay. All right, so at this time, we will move to our next agenda item, agenda item number 4, and we'll get an explanation of the evening's process. Mr. Santos.
Thank you, Mr. Morales. Basically tonight, what we're going to present to the committee is really the recommendations of all the 4 subcommittees that we had, actually 5 subcommittees. And I think the role or the direction that the subcommittees were given last week is prioritize and bring all, what you feel are the needs for the district at this point in time. Once we present, obviously, then we'll begin to look at what it is that we can afford and what is it that we're able to work with. But tonight, you'll get the full presentation from each of the 5 subcommittees that we have. Now, one other item, I think in front of you or somewhere on the side of the desk, I've got a blank form, which is for the Speakers Bureau. Right now, I've identified a couple of people that already have volunteered. And if you're interested in volunteering, there's a form on the side of the table. Please fill out the form, and this one will begin to work with you to start lining up those Speakers Bureau, which I think are going to play an extremely vital role as we roll out the, whatever bond or we're going to present. Let me also introduce 3 of the people that are here. 3 of my immediate bosses. Mr. Gilpin, our president, is up front. Mr. Rick Rodriguez, somewhere on the back. Mr. Rodriguez was here a few minutes ago. And Ms. Pat Campos is also in the back. We have 3 of our board members here with us tonight. Thank you, Ms. Campos and Mr. Gilpin. I know Mr. Rodriguez was in here tonight. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and start off with the presentation. I know Ms. Bruni will do the first presentation on the new facilities.
Let me tell you a little bit about how we approach the dialogue and the discussion that eventually led to the recommendations that we're going to make to you. We had a very large group of over 50. And so what we did was we wanted to strengthen the theme of we're here for the entire district. We knew that every one of us, and I can give myself as an example, I've lived in the South Hall for over 30 years. My boy went to United South High School. But we wanted to make sure that this did not become, I'm devoted to this segment, I'm devoted to this neighborhood, that we wanted to strengthen the theme of we're here for the entire district. So what I did essentially is I did the 1, 2, 3, 4. I took the first group of citizens who had been with us at our first committee meeting, and I assigned them on a 1, 2, 3, 4. The idea being that we were going to develop, because it was a very large group, and having 55 or 60 people all discussing the same issue would not lend everyone the opportunity to be really involved. So we created 4 subcommittees, each one dedicated to one of the feeder patterns on a 1, 2, 3, 4 basis. And we ended up with a very good sampling. Each group then including pretty much an equal number of committee members. I want to thank to begin with, and it was a remarkable evening last week. Based on the data, there was a lot of passion and an awful lot of interest, but based on the data, based on the information that we had been provided, we were able to, within a 2-hour period, we were able to come back and make presentations. Each committee had a chair and a reporter, and I want to thank those folks who basically facilitated each one of the subgroups. We had, for example, Julio Garcia, who's here today. Julio, who chaired the LBJ feeder pattern. And then we had for United High School, for United South High School, we had Rick Gavian. Is Rick here today? Rick, there you go, Rick. Rick chaired the United South High School feeder group, and Edward Ochoa was his recorder. Then for United High School, is Tessie here today? Tessie, there you go. Tessie Rodriguez was our chair, and Jorge Vera. Is Jorge here today? The point of the matter, though, is that they were here last week, and they did a phenomenal job. And then for the Alexander group, Dr. Mateo Reyes was the chair. Now, he let me know that he was going to be running a little late, but he was the chair. I'm not sure who the reporter was for that group. I didn't get a name. But by the time we were done, within a 2-hour period, we were ready to make recommendations. And these are the recommendations. I need to tell you one other thing. We had stressed to them, you need to prioritize, because who knows, we might have to cut back. So put your #1 priority need at the very top. Realizing that just about everything here is a need, because we know that we weren't driven by fluff. It's a need, but you will see this list of recommendations presented to you in priority order. Are you up there? Are you going to be up there? Yes. Okay. This is what the committee is recommending to the full committee, beginning with LBJ High School. Priority 1, a new 9th grade campus at Cerrito Lindo subdivision, and that would relieve the high school, the LBJ High School. Priority 2, and you can see the dollar tags on all of them. Okay. Priority 2, a new elementary school at the Cerrito Lindo subdivision, and that would relieve Perez Elementary, Centeno, Roosevelt, and Plata. Priority 3, a new middle school at Cuatro Vientos Sur, relieving the Lamar Bruni Vergara Middle School, the Los Obispos Middle School, the United South Middle School. You're going to see that the figures pretty much stay stable, unless there is an additional cost for reconfiguring the land, because of the fact that we use prototypes, we're able to really zero in on costs that remain pretty firm. And then priority 4, another elementary school, no property available. In other words, if we're able to do everything we want to do, this is what they would also recommend, an additional elementary school for future growth. Those are the recommendations made by the LBJ feeder group. Well, we're going to want to add, give opportunity at this time or later if there are questions regarding that. At the end of the whole thing, okay. For the United South Middle School, for the United South High School feeder pattern, priority 1, the reconstruction of Salinas, which happens to be one of the 2 oldest campuses in the district. I think it's over 40 years old. Reconstruction of Salinas. Priority 2, a new middle school at the EG Ranch on Highway 359. And you'll see that there's some off-site development costs worked into it too. This would relieve Gonzales Middle School and United South Middle School, which right now has all its 6th graders in portables. Priority 3, a new elementary school at the EG Ranch on Highway 359 with some additional site development costs, relieving Sapilini, Bonnie Garcia, and Salinas. Priority 4, a new 9th grade campus at Cuatro Vientos Norte subdivision, which would relieve United South High School. And finally, priority 5, the new elementary school at Cuatro Vientos North subdivision, which would relieve Orange, Ruiz, and Salinas. Okay. For United High School, a new 9th grade annex for Washington Middle at Agüero. What did I say? Oh, sorry, I just flipped it. A new 6th grade annex for Washington Middle at Agüero. That would be priority 1 at the Agüero subdivision, and that would obviously relieve Washington Middle School. With core, now this is interesting, and you might have some more discussion on this. This basically would be a small enrollment, but the committee, this subcommittee is looking ahead. They would build a middle school with a small enrollment, but equipped and ready to grow as the enrollment grows in that area. A new 9th grade campus at the San Isidro Ranch subdivision, which would relieve Troutman Middle School and United Middle School. And priority 3, a new elementary school at the San Isidro Ranch subdivision, which would relieve Borcher, Malakoff, Colonel Santos Benavides. And then finally for Alexander High School, a new 9th grade campus at Coves and Winfield, which would relieve Alexander High School, with some off-site development costs worked into it. Priority 2, a United Middle School 6th grade annex, using the current Troutman 6th grade campus on Del Mar, right? That would relieve the United Middle School. Priority 3, a new elementary school at Coves and Winfield, which would relieve Colonel Santos Benavides, Borchers, and Malakoff. And priority 4, the reconstruction of Clark Elementary. And although the committees working in their feeder pattern groups and then coming back together as a full committee, even though this committee did not actually make a recommendation about an additional high school, because it had surfaced in those original surveys that had been done of the community in general, and at that point it surfaced as a priority, we felt that it was only fair to include it in this recommendation package. And that new high school with a 1,500 capacity would cost about $64 million. One of the points that I'd like to make, which I thought was really fascinating, was that in 2007, the recommendation of 9th grade campuses had surfaced, and it just didn't go anywhere, because I don't think the community understood the value behind it. And today, with the first graduating class at United High School being the graduating class that had their 9th grade experience in the 9th grade campus and registered the highest ever graduation, with all kinds of exemplary performance, attendance, discipline. So much of it attributed to Tony Rivera, who made the observations a couple of weeks ago. I really am so grateful that every one of these subcommittees recommended a ninth grade campus. It'd be a wonderful advantage for our young people. And so that brings the total cost to $423,458,669. Questions now? Questions from the floor?
Just one clarification, you said of the United High School, the new ninth grade campus, and then it relieved Charlton Middle and United Middle. Was that supposed to be up for the sixth grade annex? It's just a typo there?
Okay. Yes, let me get
Good,
that.
just an error.
Basically, what ends up happening, and we discussed it at the committee level, is that once the new ninth grade campus is constructed next to the current high school, the current new high school off of San Isidro, then it frees up the current ninth grade campus, the old United High School, and basically you take Trauma's enrollment and you split it in half. Two schools, two middle schools. Current Trauma Middle and a brand new middle school. Simple.
Was there any discussion in the subcommittee about where the new high school would be?
I know that in previous presentations that we've made, there is a designated location for the high school off of the Mines Road in the Los Pinitas area, off of the Mines Road, basically. So I can't remember what the actual highway that crosses there, but there's the Mines Road, and then there's an intersecting highway that goes to the Pinitas area. Las Tiendas Road, and it's in that area that's right now designated for the high school.
It was not discussed by the committee. It did not surface in any of the committee discussions, but because it had surfaced as a priority need in that first survey that had been done, it had surfaced there as a priority need. We felt that it was only fair to bring it to you, but it was not discussed. It never. And what we did when we came back to make our individual group presentations, we opened up the floor again to the whole committee, asking, is there anything else that you want to put on the table? And there was very strong consensus. In fact, there was absolutely no dissension in the recommendations that we brought to you tonight. Thank you.
I made some notes, that's why I'm going to the ninth grade campus design. Was there discussion, because I know in our committee, I was on the finance committee, there was discussion whether a ninth grade, because the prototype is our current ninth grade campus, but that's an old high school. So are we talking about a ninth grade campus with all football field, softball field, everything, or are we just talking about a campus for just education, and then they can go to the high school and use the facilities over there?
Now, if I could address that question, basically this ninth grade campus would be a self-standing facility, but some of the programs that would be serving the students would be housed at the main campus, but they would have their practice fields for the athletics, they would have their gym and the basic core areas, but some of the programs is really more advantageous for the actual instruction would be housed at the main campus. As an example, the band. Band is not required to have it at a typical ninth grade. Students would have to be participating in the band at the main campus. Track, as another example, would be at the main campus. So it's a combination of both.
If I may also respond, excuse me, let me respond to the wording. It'll be a full-blown, almost a full-blown high school, very small. Meaning, they'll have practice fields for softball, baseball. We're looking to do gymnasium and make sure, obviously, our girls have the opportunity, same thing as boys, so there's no issues there. We did visit with Mr. Aleman, did visit with Mr. David Sanchez, Mr. Vera, and the cheering hands, how they were able to work at these 4 years, what worked well for United. We really want to copy what they did. Going back to what Mr. Marquez said, I think on the band, we're able to take the students to the band hall. for the main back. I think on athletics, boys, girls, they can practice there. The large weight room is at the new high school. So all these things, we don't want to duplicate, but I think the facilities will be there, almost like a middle school, except, what we have for high school.
I love sports, but can we make a notation there that maybe later on we can make a motion because
Would you make one, I'm sorry?
to make a motion of some sort to the committee, to the steering committee, because I know in discussions, there have been people talking about not putting those type of facilities in there, and I'd like it to be so that there could be some kind of motion, whether it be denied, that's fine, whatever, but, just to do it, because I think that discussion was left out, at least in our committee, we were really talking heavily about to what extent that ninth grade campus should be.
Really, it's not gonna be it's not like a high school, the facility's built like a high school. But I think it'll have a, practice field, football practice field. I think the facilities, just like what they have at the middle school, all those facilities. And again, even if we can bus our students to the high school, we're gonna do that. Not to duplicate services, obviously to save money too, on those items. Yeah, absolutely. Yes. And again, we don't have a prototype. Mr. Morales, I'm sure, can entertain motions, but we don't have a prototype for that particular school. But we did talk to the principal, we did talk to all the different people, obviously the instructional people also, as far as what is it they're going to be able to teach, what core classes and what electives and so on and so forth. Yes.
I have a separate question regarding the high school. Ms. Bruni's mentioning that we added on because in the survey it's there. Do you have the number of students right now that if you were to build that high school in the next 2-3 years, you'd have the number sufficient to at least fill half of that high school? Once you do that, are you moving boundaries across every other line for the high school?
Yeah. You'd almost have to change boundaries. Because if we, as an example, and I'm not saying that's what's going to happen, but if that high school was built, most likely we'll probably start anywhere between 1,500 and 1,700 students. But we'd always have to look at boundaries all the way across to be able to change boundaries. Otherwise, you'd have a very small high school united with large facilities.
Because we're talking about $64 million.
No, absolutely.
And so the question that becomes, in order to prepare and be able to answer that question to the community, do you have the number sufficient at this point to justify building a high school? That becomes the question. Because if I get asked that question, I want to be able to say, based on what I'm told, yes, those numbers are there.
I think going back to what Ms. Bruni said, number one is obviously, I think you as a group today will look at saying, hey, do we put it here? Do we not recommend that as part of the new construction? Initially, Ms. Bruni just shared that with you, that the whole 4 subgroups did not recommend it. The reason it was put there at this point in time was because that was part of the initial survey.
Just a quick comment procedurally, but we want to make sure we get a good recording of all the comments that are here today. And so what we ask, if for anyone who's got a question, we've got mics kind of spread out, we ask you just to step up to the mic, or you can grab it and sit down if you'd like, but just going forward. Yeah, and if you please identify yourself as well. Thanks.
Hello. Porto, the chair for the record. My question is regarding the total cost. Do we have room for improvement based on the numbers we see here? Going back to the question I initially asked at the beginning, I think, when we started these meetings, on the bids, different companies bidding on these contracts. How much are we projected to either lose or gain on this number?
Yes, these costs are estimates developed by our consultants from Kel Munoz Architects, but we would go out for procurement for competitive bids on every single one of these projects. So the prices will probably be less, once it goes through the competitive procurement.
But there's no projected number on how much?
It's difficult to tell, but but these numbers are developed based on the current markets right now in the construction market, whatever they are. But every time we go out to the competitive procurement, we normally get lower bids, and we're able to get it within this budget.
I realize that that's a question that will probably be answered until we get into the construction end of the phase, but based on their survey, they should have had a percentage of X amount of dollars that could possibly be saved, given the fact that it's gonna be outsourced.
There is a 3 to 5% contingency amount, yes, sir.
That's what I was.
To work with, yes, that's correct. So these are not by any means the final number.
Yes.
I mean, once it will be fine-tuned.
Thank you.
Mr. Nahim, I don't know if you want to also mention the fact that work in process on these projects. Some of these things, it happens here, for example, if we were to reconstruct Salinas, some of these overcrowded moves that were being made on wouldn't happen, wouldn't be needed because we've already resolved the overcrowded in the Salinas by building a larger school. I don't know if that's something that you want to mention. It happens in more than one instance.
That's correct, Ms. Bonilla. Yes, the comment is that if some of these projects are removed from the list, they're not the highest priority. There's another list of projects that the additions and renovations have recommended, which would be added back to the list because they were removed at this point based upon if a new construction or a new school is built, then we don't need to add, for example, classroom wings at other existing schools. So there's a sequence of events that may happen when any of these items are modified. So it's an ongoing process, as Ms. Rooney mentioned. So we would have to look at every single project and what would be the chain reaction or events that would happen once those get modified. But we do have a Plan B list of wing additions or renovations of existing schools that would have to be put back into the program. Any other questions?
I have a comment. Jose Diaz de Leon, right here. I worked 24 years with the state as a social worker and worked mostly with the teen moms. And one of our biggest issues was how do I keep this young woman in school, right? And I think that looking at these stats with the 9th grade campus, it shows that that's where the key is how do you keep kids from dropping out? And if we're graduating, an exceptional amount of young people from the high school that went to this 9th grade campus, maybe that's helping them to mature a lot faster before they get into the regular high school campus. And, I think we need to look within our hearts as well, not just look at the numbers, but let's see what's working for this district. And I think that's a big key right there, the 9th grade campus, in order for the future of our kids, right? We're looking at the future of our children in this district. So, I'm pretty impressed with the numbers. I wish, we could say, yes, we're going to get that money. We need to be realistic and make our best effort to go out and convince our community that, hey, our kids are worth it. We got to put a big effort and get these campuses built because I think we're up, we're the 3rd fastest growing city. Mike, I'm not sure where our stats are right now. We're back up again in terms of growth. So where does that leave us in 4 or 5 years? We need to make sure our future is protected. So.
Yes, as Coach Vallecero shared with us during the committee, we're the 8th largest or fastest growing city in the country, so we certainly have that. One of the things that I did want to mention is these are recommendations by the committee by priority, so at the end of the day, we will do what's best for this committee as far as affordability to make sure that the items that are necessary are the items that we actually crucially need to build. And as Ms. Bruni mentioned before, is everybody really took to heart. In some cases, in some of the subcommittee cases, they felt that all the items were #1 priorities, but they actually had to rank them so that at some point, if items need to be removed, then they know based on the priorities what those lower priority items are. What was the question?
Eric. Oh, it's on. Okay. It does say speak into the microphone and get close. I was just wondering, in terms of the 9th grade campuses, do you have an approximate cost for the approximate cost for the additional, well, I'll call them duplicated athletic and other facilities that are at these ninth grade campuses, just following up on the same line of questioning, what is the approximate cost of those additional facilities?
We can certainly provide that information for the committee. We don't have it broken down at this point, but the estimates developed by the architects, they can provide it to us more accurately, have a number for just the athletics, if I understand correct. The athletics facility, like a practice fields, weight room, and we will get that number for you, provide it, email it to everyone.
Or do have the check in for the record. I just wanted to clarify that that question that I asked earlier was based on the fact that those costs, projected costs, if we were actually, I think you answered that in saying that any additional savings would go right back into those projects that were not in this, discussed today. And that's one thing that I was questioning, was because of the fact that some of those campuses that are being either rebuilt or new construction going on, sometimes you're never going to know until you get there. But based on that, we're going to put it right back in for the students instead of other areas. I think that's the question that we wanted to address.
One of the things that's very critical is that these funds can only be used for construction. There's no other method, or there's no other areas that investments can be made. And at the very least, whatever is voted on in terms of the number of schools and the items, at minimum, that has to be constructed. We have opportunities to add to that, but at the very minimum, whatever is decided has to be constructed. And that money has to be reinvested for any bricks and mortar project.
Right, thank you.
For the record, how would you want us to, the priority is fine, I like that in that 1, 2, 3, 4. How should we look at the technological stuff? How does that fit priority, or? I don't think it should fit.
Actually, we need to make that.
Yeah, we'll present that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's nice.
Yeah, we're going to handle, I guess, every subcommittee. This is just new construction. So once we've kind of gone through all the questions and comments on new construction, we're going to move to each of the subcommittees. We're going to take a break, and then we're going to come back and then ask if we're ready to vote for each one of these recommendations. So we'll handle it like that. So we haven't gotten into the second subcommittee.
I'd just like to add that on the construction projects themselves, we do have the technology built in, so the new campus would have fully implemented technology, instructional technology.
Quick question. Now that the new high school is added, since we didn't really talk about it in the committee, how much would the new high school cost if you add the 9th grade to that high school? So as opposed to, is it an extra 15 million and then you can avoid building a 9th grade campus? It's just cost saving.
We can figure that number for you, because obviously there would be some areas that could be shared if they're adjacent or built at the same time, so we'll get that information to you. Any other questions? Thank you. We'll move on to the next subcommittee.
Before we do that, let me just go ahead and let the record reflect that we have a quorum of board members, Mr. Montemayor joining us.
For the record, Hector Perez, I'm the Executive Director of Information Technology, and Ms. Ramos, I believe you wanted to say a few words? Okay. We have Mrs. Montemayor that had to leave, but we have Ms. Ramos, our Vice Chair for the committee.
Good evening, Jackie Ramos for the record, and I'm the co-chair of the Technology Committee. And yes, we are going to go over the numbers, Mr. Navarro. Just to let you know, the next presentation deals with the technology. And we discussed a lot of the future trends in our society. So as a group, we met together and we discussed some of the things that we felt that we really needed. And most important thing was the infrastructure, the technology infrastructure that needed to be upgraded. And so we're recommending the infrastructure upgrades of the existing schools, and they'll be shown in a minute. And then the main distribution frame room also. We've also included interactive boards and VBrick, which is $15,000 for each school, and it's an educational channel video system that has already been implemented in certain schools as pilot programs. So what we wanted to do as a group, we formulated some ideas. We're still, we voted on the ideas, but Mr. Perez will discuss them a little bit further, and he'll also have a presentation at the end of our meeting on that interactive board so that y'all could see it. But in total, our numbers, which are not going to be shown up here on the presentation, but our numbers are going to equal out to 30.2 million. Okay, so just because they're not on the screen, so that if you add them up, you'll see the numbers. It includes the VBRIC, the 2,700 digital interactive panels, the wireless network infrastructure to be installed in all classrooms, that's also included, and the technology committee recommendation, network infrastructure upgrade, and that includes the different schools that are there. And Mr. Perez will discuss this a little bit further. And we did decide to do this because since it was the #1 concern in the survey, this is the first thing that we need to address is the infrastructure of the current existing schools so that we can move further and then add to the new schools. There's a lot of schools that don't have accessibility to wireless and are not part of the E-rate funding that's available out there. But Mr. Perez will discuss that further, and I'll go ahead and pass it on to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This is the technology that nobody gets to see. This is the one that is behind the scenes, in closets, but it's the one that provides internet access to our network, to our different campuses, accessing many, many applications. The main one are instructional technology programs, of course. These campuses that you see listed, most of them were on the 2007 bond. Unfortunately, the bond did not pass. Some of these campuses have technology that is older than the other campuses, and there's a reason for that. These campuses don't have the numbers that our other campuses have when it comes to the economically disadvantaged students. The government can fund up to 90% of the cost of the equipment and the cabling, but the campus has to have certain levels, certain numbers of economically disadvantaged students. So as you can see, campuses that are listed there will never have an opportunity to get that kind of funding. That's why we prioritize them and we put them here on this slide. Where you see main data center, that is the main center where everything comes in and goes to the internet. What is happening too is we have our campuses, some of the ones that have been getting funded through E-rate, that have very fast networks, but when they come to central office, if we don't upgrade the equipment at central office, it could cause a bottleneck. It will slow down the system because everything goes through central office to the internet, to the cloud. So that was the first recommendation by the committee. Then we got the other three that Ms. Ramos mentioned. One is the VBRIC video distribution system. That particular system will allow us to broadcast TV channels to each one of our classrooms using our network. It costs $15,000 per school, but it gives us the ability to use what we already have, which is our network. The beauty of that is that we control what is being watched in the classroom. They don't get to have Time Warner freely on DirecTV, but we want mainly instructional, educational channels, such as certain Discovery channels, because there's several, History Channel, just channels like that. In addition, the principal will be able to broadcast a, you know how they do it on the PA system, the Pledge of Allegiance, they'll be able to do it, and the kids will be able to see the principal on the projector, on the screens, okay? That opens the lines of communication. The next recommendation is the interactive panels. We have one right here, and I will ask Mr. Morales to do a 5 to 7 minute presentation, a short presentation. Unfortunately, this is a very big room. Some of you might not be able to see very well, but we will stay at the end of the presentation in case you want to see some of the features. Now, this was presented, Mrs. Judy Garcia, our instructional technology coordinator. She showed us what the classroom of the past used to be and what the classroom of the present and the future is going to be. We went through that in our committee. As you know, our kids don't learn like we used to learn, okay? They need to be engaged, they need to be motivated, they need to pay attention, they need to do activities between 4 or 5, and I'm not an instructional person, but that's what I've seen, over the years, that you need to get them engaged. One of the things that were recommended by the committee that could work will be a board like this, or a panel, okay? Now, there was some concern as far as how long is this board going to last. Now, when you're on the technology committee, it is very difficult to make recommendations that are going to last 20 to 30 years. It's just the nature of the beast of how technology evolves. Some of you have seen the commercial where the guy bought the G4 and he's driving and there's an app with the G5. We took that into consideration, okay? If you see the projector that is projecting these images, that technology has been in place for 20 to 25 years, okay? The projectors have been in business. Projectors are going to be a thing of the past. This is what's going to replace the projector. A panel like this that is interactive. It's not a TV. It allows students to interact with the board, to draw. It allows us the opportunity to have tablets, iPads, to be able to take over the board, and you can ask a student, can you show us how you solve that math problem? And the student from his desk can go ahead and show the entire class how he solved the problem. That's just to give you an example. And again, I'm not the instructional person, but that was presented to us at the previous meeting. It comes with a cost. The cost of the boards are an average of $5,000. We have added for cabling, installation, and electrical a total of $1,000 more for a total of 2,700 classrooms. This is something that is going to touch every classroom in the district, every school, okay? At a cost of $16.2 million. Then last but not least, the wireless network infrastructure. We will continue to expand our wireless for all campuses. We will have access points on every classroom in the district that can provide service to up to 24 computers for each classroom. As you know, everything is tending to go wireless more and more and more. The technology is working faster and faster. So those are the recommendations. The sum is $30 million for all of them, and that's what the committee came up with. I don't know if you all have any questions that I can answer at this time. Yes, sir.
I'm a teacher at South. The only question I had, and I guess the only assurances I think that I totally endorse the use of these boards with one caveat. Is this a part of how is this integrating with the plan for the district as far as technology? What I mean by, with the uses of tablets, maybe more computers. Where is that? That's the only thing. How does that fit into that technology plan?
Sure. At this time, we're doing a pilot for mobile learning devices. There was a pilot this summer, and there's a rollout that we're doing this coming year. We are already using this kind of technology with projectors. So in less than a year, we're going to be negotiating our lease for our computers, and at that time, we're going to consider whether to continue to buy desktop computers or a combination of desktops and some of the mobile learning devices, depending on the results of the pilot. So to answer your question, it's in the plan to get it to work with mobile technology and with a computer that is on the teacher desk. You'll be able to display whatever is on your computer or on your VDU, the one that has the projector. You'll be able to display it on the board, get it to make it interactive.
And then the financing for that?
For the mobile learning devices, well, we'll come up with our lease. We have a lease payment that we make every year, and we will study any additional funds. I think that we can try to get a hold of from our general fund.
It just seems like we're putting a whole lot of eggs in one basket, and so I think it would be intelligent to have a multi-layer plan.
Yes, no, we do. We have a 3-year plan approved by TA, and it does include the mobile learning devices. Any other questions that I might answer? Thank you, sir. Yes.
Jackie Ramos for the record again. I want to explain bullet number 2, just so that in case some committee members are still trying to figure out. We have 2,700 rooms in our school district. So what we're trying to do is trying to replace the projectors. If you're in the classroom right now, you realize that each bulb is $250, and it only gives a certain amount of time. In addition to that, we also have to consider the filters that are in the systems as well. And so we were able to have a discussion on that. Talk about all of the pros and cons that dealt with that. This is one unit that we can see. It is not set in stone. So therefore, we decided on these different areas separately, not together as a package. So we can change things. And we can say, you know what, the digital interactive panels might not be beneficial. But in this case, we decided with that because, yes, technology changes on a day-to-day basis. By the time we finish getting something, we're already behind. And it goes to show that with our phones too. But we feel that we are keeping up with that trend. And so we welcome any other suggestions from any other committee member. And we've also opened it up to our own committee members to have other suggestions about the 2,700 digital interactive panels, because that would be for the classrooms. And so that would be for the children also as well. And the VBreak is a distribution system that provides channels. And so at this point in time, we've had a pilot program going on in 2 schools, right, Mr. Perez? So in 2 schools, that would be Trotman and Killam, and Franklin Delano Roosevelt, which is over here on this area. So those are the things that we've been utilizing, and they have been working, and so that's why we make the suggestion. But we welcome any comments, any suggestions, any questions. But most importantly, I think we have to deal with the infrastructure, first and foremost. Thank you.
At this time, I was going to ask Mr. Morales, Luis Morales from Smart. Smart is just one of the brands. There's about 4 boards in the market, and we will bid this out. We will go ahead and get a committee from instruction. So we can do the 5 to 7 minute demo, and then at the end of the meeting, we're going to stay here to answer any questions you might have or anything else you want to see. Yes. No, this is a 55-inch board. This is sort of like the travel board, I imagine. The one we're looking at buying is anywhere from 70 to 80 inches. That screen you see over there, that's a 60-inch screen. So it will be bigger than that. Okay. Now this is a very big room, so we will probably in a room like this install more than 1 unit. But it is a lot bigger than this.
Turn this way. Can everybody hear me? I'm going to use my coaching voice here, so I don't have a mic to be walking around. Everybody good in the back? Yes? All right, my name is Luis Morales. I am the Education Solutions Specialist for SMART. I work Texas, Latin America, and the Caribbean as a consultant for the Ministry of Education. So I'm coming in here as an implementation person for you guys. I'm going to talk about the hardware and the software. So there's 2 things here that we got to understand. There's a hardware piece and there's a software piece. Everybody know the difference? Right? The hardware is what I can touch. The software that runs is the brain inside. Okay? So I'm going to go over both things here. The first thing I'm going to tell you is that this is a smart board. The next thing I need you to do is get your phones out. If you have a smartphone or if you have your tablets out, get those out. We will need those today. The first thing, because I thought it was going to be a 30-minute presentation, it's kind of longer in here, so I'm just going to change it up for a 5-minute presentation. So I'm going to talk a little faster, and my accent might come out. Sorry. All right, so here we go. First things first, it's touch, right? It's touch. So there we have a smartphone. Everybody touch your phone. Is your phone touch? Yes? Everybody good? All right, do me a favor. Get your water bottle or something else that's not your finger and then touch your phone. Is your phone touch? Not anymore, right? That's what they call, the phones, tablets are made of capacitive technology. This one's made out of DVI-T, meaning it has cameras in every corner. You can't see them, students don't know it's there. But if I touch this here, I'm going to have actually 4 touches. So if I come in here and I touch the screen, I'm actually going to have 4 touches. I do a Freddy Krueger there. Everybody see that? Yeah. I'm going to use my phone. Touch. I'm going to use a water bottle. Touch. So it's a different type of technology, so I need you to understand that the durability with this is a lot different than what you have on your phones. right? So for instance, if you have students that, they have to wear gloves and they want to use the tablet, can they use it? No, they have to take them off, right? Or they got to use special stylus. Is that correct? In this one, I can use my elbow with the shirt on, and I can use anything. See how I'm erasing here? I can use any device. That's the hardware piece, and that's all I'm going to talk about the hardware. Does everybody understand that? Yes, I have one more thing on hardware. This is 55 inches, right? Diagonal. So every time you look at screen size, it's 55 inches diagonal. That one there is 65 inches diagonal. The one that we have in the market right now is 70-inch diagonal, which is larger than that one. Okay, now in the classroom size, that's a pretty good size, right? In the near future, when I say near future, meaning sometime within the next school year, we're going to release an 82-inch diagonal screen. The big difference between ours and everybody else is that we're making it affordable to the school districts. If you look for this in the market right now, it's going to cost you about $8,000. Smart right now is $49.99. The 70-inch is $59.99. So we reduced the price. We've made it so that it's more affordable to the school districts. But again, the hardware just means I got multi-touches here. No, I'm going to go over the software. Everybody good on that one? Good? Just give me track of time. Please, thank you. All right, the first thing first is that we're talking about student devices. Bring your own device, or you provide the devices, whatever you want. As long as we have internet, I can assess my students through any device that's internet enabled. So if I want to ask a question here, all I got to come here is say, come in here, ask a question, and say yes or no. I don't have an actual question again. I'm having to modify this. So I'm already asking a question here. It's going to throw me out an assessment ID. It says go to response.smarttech.com. What device can I use to go to the internet? Any device that's internet capable, right? Computer, PC, or Windows, or Mac, phones, cell phones, BlackBerry, Crackberry, iPhone, Android, whatever you got, right? So what devices can you use? That is already owned by the students to use it, right? Because they're not going to break theirs, correct? Right? Okay. So that's already there also. Another type of software that we have right now is what I just showed you was assessment, right? That was assessment collection. Why do we want assessment collection? Because if we're taking a benchmark, I can assess my students either through my school computers or through their own devices. I'm going to collect the data. That's assessment collection. The next thing that we have is collaboration. Because what is it right now that we don't have? Right now, well, let me go back to page 1 here. Right now, the way things are set up is that our classrooms were originally built to look like this. Can everybody see this picture here? I'm sorry, let me go back here. Can everybody see that image there? What do you see? Desk and rolls, right? Okay, so that kind of changed. I'm just moving everything on here, sorry guys. That kind of changed now. Now we're looking at something like, okay, we have a smart board, but we still have what? You still have rows, right? Does that change anything? No, you just got a more expensive dry erase board. So we're going to change it and take that one out. The next thing we got is what? Now we got personal devices. But what is a personal device? It's mine. Am I going to share it? No, because you know what? It's mine. It's my personal device, and I have my personal pages here, and you're not going to see them because, they're mine. Right? So that's not working there either, because it's still mine. And so the word collaborative doesn't really come into play, right? Many school districts have bought them, but then they ask themselves, well, how do we get them to work together? Because it's still just me, right? Okay, going on to the next one. Sorry, I have a lot of pictures here. Is this one here. Now we're using what? We're using the smart board, we're using the device, but where's the teacher? Those of you that can see here, those of you that have 20/20. Right? You don't see the teacher because it's doing what? Now that it's a true collaborative student-centered environment. Everybody see that? So the question is, how do we do that? How is SMART doing that? SMART is changing the way it's always been. Instead of saying, we want you guys to go together, we're developing the software in a sense that's going to make you guys work together. So if I go back to the other piece here that I was going to show you earlier, is we have something that's an XE here. And I'm going to show you what this is here. And we're not going to go through it because of lack of time. But what this is here is I can throw any QR code on here. The students scan it with their phone, iPad, whatever device they have, and then they're able to put in ideas. So for example, I have my QR code here. I would get my QR reader, which most of you that have a cell phone have it. You scan it, it takes you straight to the page, and all I do is put in my name, put in my answer. So I could ask you here is, do we want the bond to pass? You guys can say yes, and then tell me why. Or put in a picture of what the school should look like. right? You can send it in now through your phones. Again, whose is it? It's theirs, right? It's theirs, right? So, going on that, again, that's a software piece. That comes with Smart, right? All this comes with Smart. So when you're looking at the price of the product, keep in mind that the software is the brand, the software that brings everything together. So now my collaborative devices are not working together. The other thing here is I have my iPad. What do you see on my iPad? My QR code, right? Which is where? Here. If I'm the student and I'm saying, hold on, mister, I want to take this here, I can get the QR code and I can move it. So I've taken, if it wants to work for me here, or not, I can take control of this, I can annotate on the screen. So if you can see this here, so who's working on the computer now? Well, let's say me, the student, right? Working through it here. Does it matter where I'm at? No. I can take control of the teacher computer here and I can try to do this here. See how I'm moving everything? So I can now participate via my personal device. But it's gone from personal to what? Instead of a one-way street, it's now a what? A two-way street. And that's again within what? The software. So don't just look at the hardware, it's the software, okay? Questions, comments there? No, well, again, sorry guys. Pulled you on that one, sorry. Alright. So now, Cinder, Morales, can you help me out? Morales, again. We're good? Alright. So what we're going to do now is we're going to show you how the software and the hardware really helps us out here. So, alright, here we go. So, Mr. Morales, what he's going to do is he's going to get the pen. Okay? Anybody just got the pen and then choose whatever color you want to do with the pen. Alright, so he has a red pen. What is it right on the screen? Red pen, right? I'm going to get my finger and I'm going to choose here and I'm going to say green. Green finger. Everybody see that? Yes? You don't have to do it right. It's just simple math. But just go ahead and do it. I didn't get it like that. Right? But he's running in what color? And I'm running at the same time. What color? Okay, so I'm going to give him my finger. He's going to give you the pen. Now we're going to switch. Let's just go ahead and just kind of scribble right here. Okay. Yeah, so just scribble anyway, right? Again, what color is he writing? I'm writing what color? So the computer is able to detect who has a finger and who has a pen. Right? Thank you so much. Appreciate your help. So look at you see here, the different color, right? Most common thing, remember who had overhead projectors and you had to put the paper over it and you write on it? And then you went to dinner and the waiter knew you were a teacher? Why did the waiter know you were a teacher? Because they were all right, sometimes you had ink here because they were the chain there, right? But it's just a habit to go like this, right? Well, what if I go like this? Did it change? Did it erase? Yeah, it's erasing. That's what they call touch recognition. It'll recognize the tip of a pen, tip of a finger, or the palm of an eraser. See how that works? Making it easy to use, intuitive. Do I have to train my teachers how to write? Everything I just did was done as a dry erase board, correct? All right. And then the last piece here, because my time's up, right? I'm trying to talk fast, but not fast enough. Software. I used to be a high school math teacher. I'm going to show you one math thing here. What we're trying to do is make it easier for the teachers to save time, to have more teachable time, right? My biggest pet peeve when I was a math teacher was having to draw a graph on a table. Just kind of watch this here real fast. I'm going to say y equals x plus 3, right? And then I would have to do the graph. I'm going to touch this here. I'm not going to recognize it as ink, although I could, but that's not what I want. What I want to do is, just give me 30 more seconds. Making me work fast here, making me nervous. Alright, so y, see that? Y equals x plus 3. Instead of recognizing it as that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to recognize it as math ink. And so what it'll do is give me a function. Once I get the function, all I got to do now is what? Math actions and create the graph. And there it is. Right? So there's the graph within a split second. Instead of me having to take time to draw the graph, I just did this. And then I'll do one more and then I'll sit down, I promise. X squared minus 9. It has an integrated calculator, so if I come in here and I say recognized as math, there it is. Now, if I look at these two, you see the blue line, how it's connected? That one doesn't have a blue line. But I'm going to get this box and I'm going to drop it like it's hot. And so there's the graph. Everybody see that? Now, these are zeros. The biggest and hardest time was me having to do all the work to get that. So I'm going to say here, okay, math actions, find the zeros. Okay, so there's x equals 3 and x equals negative 3. There it is. It allows me to have more teachable time with the integration of the software within the hardware. And I call it quits, guys. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Morales. We will be here after the meeting. If you still have any questions or you want to see any of the features on the board.
I don't know how I'm going to follow that one up. I think $40 to do this for me. Good afternoon, everybody. Peter Alonso for the record. We'll go through the safety and security items for district campuses. As you'll see here, there's certain campuses that need a particular upgrades and particular items needed for security, from police security to fire alarms and so forth. All schools, you'll see the security station at main entrance needs to be added on, and I'll give you all a total amount here instead of going through all the numbers, so no we're pressed for time. Building access control for all perimeter doors, for example, like a key card perimeter door. Upgrade of security surveillance system and camera system, and we're able to go do a walkthrough to the police station and also to their monitoring room. A lot of the cameras they have there, some are outdated and a lot of them have been upgraded from the Vigilance system, which is a megapixel camera system. And it allows you to view what you want to see in a lot better sense as opposed to some of the older cameras that are there now. So they've already begun some of the upgrades, but obviously these cost a lot of money. We want to also replace the fire alarm system at the following campuses that are listed there without having to go through each one of those. Also replace the existing security alarm system at the following campuses. Also very important for us. Replace the PA system basically at these particular campuses here. And upgrade to all doors to ADA and replace panic devices. This total here is at $10,995,101. These particular items were brought up by the committee. We were spoken to about them, and the school did a very good job. Mr. Zuniga did a very good job with Captain Camarillo, or Interim Chief Camarillo. There were some things that were discussed and they were noted by the school. There were some things that were discussed that obviously weren't able to be put on this particular bond because again it's a construction bond. So that information was noted by the school district, which they will address at a later date. If there's any other questions or any questions on these particular items. We're good. Thank you all.
Good evening, everyone. Nancy Nasraniz, Director of Construction Management. The Additions and Renovations Subcommittee has recommended the following projects for the upcoming bond program. Most of the items are priority ones, items strongly recommended for legal, health, and safety reasons and student growth. So as you see on the first slide, campuses that are going to be considered for renovations, and we're also adding air conditioning and energy management system to these campuses for a total of $14,844,330. On the second slide, okay, the recommendation for building additions at the following campuses are as follows, and the total for those are $15,182,415. So this brings the additions and renovations to a total of $30,026,745. And that is what the subcommittee for additions and renovations is recommending. Any questions? Thank you.
all the different committee recommendations, we went ahead and just summarized it on one page so that everybody can see all the information, and then of course the grand total. As we mentioned earlier, the new schools amount was $423 million. The technology upgrades district-wide with the interactive boards is $30 million. The safety and security upgrades district-wide are $10 million, and the additions and renovations district-wide that were provided individualized were $30 million. And then there is an amount that needs to be set aside for financial advisors, and legal services, administrative costs, which is 1% of the entire package, which is roughly about $3.9 million, for a grand total of $498,701,431. Again, this is the optimal amount, and of course, those items can be interchanged. But I guess the good news, or the best part about the whole discussion, is what will it cost our community to be able to get this particular amount passed.
Thank you, Mike. For the record, my name is Laila Benavides, and I'm the Assistant Superintendent for Business and Finance. First of all, I'd like to commend the Finance Committee. We were a small group, but very vocal and a lot of good opinions. And I think I'm going to tell you that the committee was not shocked. I don't think we are shocked to see that number. Because as we were just talking about, interest rates and what you could buy, use operating money and tax rate and our tax history, etc. We studied what was passed out on the construction costs, and we started doing the multiplication of, well, how many elementaries, how many middle schools, how many ninth grade centers. And so what was shared with the committee members was an estimated bond program, no less than $320 million, up to $570 million. So we're kind of glad that's kind of less than $500 million right now. But what we did have, we had data from our financial advisors. We had asked them to run, excuse me, we had asked them to run scenarios if we were to do 300, 325, 350, 400, and $450 million. And so what we shared with the committee members was the tax rate impact. And here we just kind of brought in those amounts that were very much discussed by the committee members. And we all understood that at the end of the day, it was going to be a person voting was going to say, how much is it going to impact my pocketbook? And so this one slide that you see up there kind of summarizes what we felt as a committee, seeing what the potential bond cost was going to be and knowing the needs of the district, that $350 million, that probably could not maybe go out for less than $350. And there you see the impact of a little less than 12 cents over a 4-year period. A tax rate increase up to, that would peak at 12 cents, additional 12 cents to what we pay right now. $400 million, a little less than 14 cents. $450 million, a little less than 16 cents. And we went ahead and had our advisors kind of tell us what it would cost for $500 million. I know that's a real big sticker shock amount, and that would be a little less than 18 cents. So at the end of the day, what we did was, what I did in this worksheet, and this is what the committee really recommended. We need to tell that taxpayer or that potential voter out there, what is it going to cost them if they vote yes on this bond election. And so the scenario you see here is that 500, if we were to go out for 500 million, what it would cost our average home in the United ISD is $137,400. And the impact on that particular residence would be $183 more for the year that they would pay, or $15 more a month. Most of our residences have mortgages, and they usually pay their taxes through a monthly payment. So we'd like to take it down to the monthly impact. A $150,000 home, a little more than $16 a month. A $200,000 home, $23.21 a month. Or a $250,000 home at a little less than $30 a month. And so one of the two things that I think that, and the committee members are more than welcome to correct me, because it was a 2-hour discussion, it was very interesting, was their recommendation is, we are here to support what the committee members, the other committee members have worked so hard to come up with. But one thing for sure is that we need to educate our public on the tax rate impact. Because many feel out there, they see this big dollar amount over, 300, 400 million, that right away they think they're going to spend so much more money a month. When you break it down to the individual taxpayer, that these are the kind of numbers that we would see. The other thing they also recommended on educating the public, and we're going to work real hard on this through our website, we had an interactive worksheet that I tried to, I guess you can take it to the interactive worksheet. We have this so-called interactive worksheet. It's not very high-tech, nothing like that right there. I wish I had that. But pretty much what they recommended that we try to educate our public out there to see what they felt they had, on their own home impact. Right there you see the value of an average home. If I were to change that to, like, let's say $175,000, you see that last number is $15.24 a month. If I put this at 175, then right away that person can see, oh, okay, I should expect to be paying $20 more a month at the end of 4 years when we peak at our tax rate of close to 18 cents more. So it's all in the educating our public, whatever that bill is going to be at the end of the day, whatever we put on the bond proposal for them to vote on, that the sticker shock of 350 million or 375 million or 400 million, that we bring it down to the actual voter and actually educate them on what that tax rate impact is. And that would be kind of really making the Speakers Bureau Committee very comfortable in relaying this message out to our community, whether it's through the Rotary Club, the Daybreak Club, any club out there, PTCs, that we would have this available for individuals to work with. So I think that's kind of what, in summing up the Finance Committee's very good dialogue, what they came up with, that we knew that at the end of the day, we're going to have to educate our public when we would go out and ask for their support. I don't know if anybody has any questions. I can put another dollar amount here. $200,000 home, there you see the $23. So our goal was to have this interactive worksheet as part of our website, so when we do start talking about a bond proposal, that we could lead individuals to this website, and I know I've put a challenge to technology, that they could go in and put their value of their home and see the impact on their own residence. And of course, we put their disclaimers there. It's going to depend on the value of their home. They need to check with Webb County Appraisal District what's the value of their home. If they're over 65, we say that their taxes would be frozen. And so we're going to work as management, that we would work on that worksheet to try to make sure that it would be an interactive worksheet on our website to help the public. Any comments or questions?
I think the emphasis should be that over 4 years that can be increasing, maybe kind of like in the first year, this is the impact, second year, third year, fourth year.
Right. We could do that, and we could make, maybe 2 or 3 worksheets. I think at the end of the day, when you start throwing so many numbers out there, that the general public might get confused. But again, it would be the recommendation. I think this would show the max. We could show an average, and we could show our incrementally, because we would be selling the bonds and issues. I made a comment earlier that Mr. Angel can spend money really fast, but 400 million is a lot of money to spend at one time. But let's say we would do it over a 3-year period or a 4-year period. It's really hard to build that many campuses all at once, management-wise, and timeline-wise. We would have to see how much we would issue per year.
Nathan, would you be able to work something like this? I know you're talking about having an interactive worksheet available on the website.
Yes.
But for those folks that are going to be going out to speak, to outreach, to campuses, to community groups, not necessarily the website, would this be available in a package that we could use when we go out to present this type of interactive worksheet?
We could, we could do anything, we could put it on pen drives, we could put it on CDs, anything that would make the person comfortable and navigating through it. So, does anybody have? Yes, ma'am.
No. Thank God.
Well, just asking about the accessibility to the webpack.org.
Yes, ma'am.
If we can have accessibility through our website, just
Sure.
like an icon.
We could probably have a link to be able to go to there, and it'll go directly to the location where you put your address or your information ID, and it'll take you to that information.
That way the public can see the value of their home.
Yes, ma'am.
And they can actually utilize the worksheet.
Yes, ma'am. And that's key because they need to put the actual amount of their value, because again, UISD is one of the very few school districts in the state that offer a 15% exemption, which the higher the value of your home, the larger your discount, because it's based on a percentage, not on a dollar amount. And on top of that, the state requires a $15,000 additional exemption after the 30%, the 15%. So again, the true value is not what's being taxed, it's the net of that.
This interactive worksheet, I mean, I know the tax rate we're using there is a little less than 18 cents, and that really is to accommodate almost $500 million of bonds. Of course, we would adjust that tax rate based on what this committee and management and the board would feel comfortable with going out to the community and selling in the bonds. And that tax rate, we work with our financial advisors, what is the current market rates, et cetera, on what that tax rate we'd be emphasizing out there. And so again, this is just for illustrative purposes, but pretty much the part that would change for the individual would be the value of the home. Any other comments or questions? Yes, ma'am.
This is going to be combined on the three, the TV, the web, and the United?
No, this is strictly just for United Independent School District tax rate. Thank you.
For the record, Tony Medea, I was on the finance subcommittee. I think I want to thank, first of all, Laida Benavides, Sam Flores, Lalo Uribe, great job directing the committee. They took every question we had. I think one of the points that we need to make is what's going to happen if we don't pass this bond? At what point are we going to be? As it is, as we're talking here, we look at the issue that we're literally playing catch up. And this is the 8th fastest growing city in the United States. I think Austin was number 10, Laredo was number 8, and Fort Worth was number 7. And then all the other cities were somewhere in California from the Forbes report that came out. But going back to what I'm saying is, where are we going to be 3-4 years down the line if this bond doesn't pass? And that's the message we need to get out there. As a committee, this is what we came up with, and we're talking about, we talked about 320, 350, 380, adding numbers back and forth, and you're talking about a very frugal group of individuals. But at a certain point, we realized it was over 400 million. How do we get that message across? And I think this is one of the best ways that we can say it, because what we're really talking about, how does it impact every family, every household on a monthly basis? And that's what we're talking about. These are hard times. It's not easy out there, but we do need it. And education is one of the most important things that we're looking at. So that's one thing that I want to stress to everybody. The other part is I am an advocate of the 9th grade campuses. My son is a graduate. He's a product. I've said before, I don't have the numbers, but I can tell you United High School had a banner year. The largest graduating class in the history of UISD. And the next class that's coming up has got over 100 students with a 4.0 GPA and above. That's coming out of 9th grade campus. I can't tell you that we need to build every 9th grade campus, because we also need to be frugal. But I also think that there's something that's working. You don't try to fix it, you keep using it over and over. Remember, how many more modules do we need in every campus in the next 4 to 5 years? In reality, I think if you look at the numbers, that budget for those modules is coming out of the M&O. And so we need to look at that also. It's having an impact. So we're looking at numbers. I don't know about the $498 million. I think that we can come down a little bit, but that's just a tightwad of me. But I also believe that we need the bond. It's time, and we need to be able to convey that message. Thank you.
Anything else before we take our break? No. All right, so we'll take a break. We'll take a 7-minute break and come back and consider voting on the proposed that you heard today. It is now 7:45, and we're moving to agenda item 7. Agenda item 7 is the vote of the committee members on proposals and recommendations that were presented today. What I'm going to do is go ahead and open the floor to any motion that anyone has to modify or to further discuss any of the recommendations that you heard today from all the subcommittees. And so, and after we hear, if there are no motions to modify, then we'll go ahead and put the presentation, as you've heard today, to a vote before the committee. Okay? So at this time, I'll go ahead and open the floor to anyone who'd like to make a motion to modify any of the proposals that were made by the subcommittees today or for further discussion. Yes, you do have to get up, unfortunately. And tell us who you are, even though we know who you are.
I'd like to make a motion to I guess we're going to do that format. My name is Orlando Navarro. I'd like to make a motion for discussion on a couple of things, and I go back to what we were talking about. New construction, they have it in priority 1 and 4, but I'd like to see if we can also kind of rank our priority when it comes to the equipment that we're talking about, because I think that's important. I mean, I believe that all the reports, security, technology, all those are things that we need personally. I don't know how everybody else feels, but I'd like to make those priority ones and get them on the list as a priority 1 in the store. Because the way I'm looking at this, I see it as it's separate from the schools, which is fine, but how do we prioritize security and technology and those things? So personally, when I heard the everything and the sale, good job, convinced me. We should rank that as a priority. And unless people think it should be less of a priority to have the technology and the security and whatever the third one was. Renovations, sorry. I'd like to put those up there because it just seems like that's on the side and it should be prioritized as something that's very important. Does that make sense? Am I making sense? No?
Say it again.
Construction, the way I see it is construction did a good job of prioritizing by schools. And then they have them ranked priority 1, priority 2. And then we have technology, which is another one, and then the renovations. I mean, those aren't prioritized in my eyes. So I'd like to elevate that to maybe a priority 1, technology, renovations. I'm losing it. Security. Keep those number 1. Unless we should lower that to a lesser priority, but I personally think that should be a priority. We'll keep that in there because we're going to eventually get into the discussion of the school priorities. I don't want to lose focus. We still have other things that we want to make sure are on the bond.
Orlando, are you saying that you want to prioritize within those categories, or you want to prioritize them?
The category.
The category as being out of the 4 or 5, how many categories do we have?
5.
5? Are you saying that you want to prioritize the categories? Is that what you're saying?
I want to make sure that those are held at the high level that they should be. In my eyes, they weren't, and I'd like to keep them.
Okay.
You know?
I'm sorry.
Well,
would
go
the
ahead.
word be included, as part of the bond? That would be the first group of items that you feel we need support right away.
Yes.
Okay.
Along with the other,
Because I think we're going to be getting into construction.
Yes.
Construction's a whole different thing, because I think there's a lot of people who have different opinions about the construction part of it. So we could just take the others and elevate them, leave them aside, and then just focus our energy on construction.
Okay, so the motion is to discuss whether to do that or not, and so I'll go ahead, let me take a vote from the committee today to open that issue for discussion. All in favor?
To open for discussion.
Just to open for discussion. Okay, any against? Okay, so the motion carries, so we'll go ahead and open it up, and anyone else who wants to further discuss whether to prioritize these other three subcommittees, these other three topics, we'll go ahead and open up the floor and do that. Go ahead.
Mr. Navarro, I think what you're saying, correct me if I'm wrong, is at the very minimum, before we get started, we need to include $30 million for technology, $10 million for safety and security, and $30 million for additions and renovations. So right now, we're starting off at roughly $70 million.
Correct.
That's the floor.
That's correct. Unless somebody can say, well, I'd like to cut this or add this, then I'm open for that discussion.
That's what's open for discussion, but right now, we're roughly around 70 to 71 million just with those three items.
Technology for security and for
additions and renovations.
Renovations and additions. That's what you say.
And I think that would take care of 2, 3, and 4, and then we can get into the discussion of campuses and stuff like that, and kind of focus our energy there.
I think everybody can hear me, but I'll Bill Johnson. On the renovations or anything that we would be talking about in the new construction, would it eliminate some of the stuff out of the renovation budget?
Whatever items that we had under additions renovation, and there was a much longer list, has already been deleted.
Already been taken out?
Yes, sir. Has been taken out with the assumption that anything under new construction right now is on the table.
I saw something in there on Clark Elementary School. It was something for band hall.
That was
But it's
would be
not
for
part of the $13 million that you have.
no, that would be for Clark Middle, Mr. Johnson. Clark Middle School. Yes, sir.
Go ahead. Julio Garcia, New Construction Subcommittee. My group basically dealt with the LBJ area. And after talking to some of the committee members in new construction, what I wanted to do is ask the committee, first of all, instead of making a motion, I wanted to see how we could propose possibly scaling back our new construction numbers. So I think that it's the bond that we're requesting is something that maybe we can actually achieve. The way we did it was we listed our quadrants with certain priorities. 1 through 4, 1 through 5, 1 through 6. One thing that's come up is LBJ and United South, I think, had a shared request on an elementary around the Cuatro Vientos area. Well, we made our proposal as part of LBJ. Our fourth priority was basically a new elementary for future growth. And as Mr. Morales had expressed to me, that's translated from the minutes into an additional $17,430,000 proposal. United South has made, I think, the same recommendation for a new elementary as our fifth priority. Again, same amount, $17,433,000. I think we're speaking on in regards to the same elementary in the same area, but it's being counted twice. I want to see if we can try and clarify that in one. And number two, before I made a motion, I wanted to see what all the committee members in the new construction thought of possibly making a motion to at least pick the top 3 priorities in every quadrant that I think would be the most important that we voted on in our respective subcommittees, and ask to see whether or not that would be a better proposal than the entire wish list that we had
we came up with last week. I'd like to open it up for discussion because it's just something that I figure that I think that we probably need to tailor back to 500 million that we're at right now. And the biggest cost is obviously the new construction. If we took into consideration maybe the top 3 priorities in every one of the 4 quadrants, that might be a better assessment of what is addressing the most important needs in those particular areas. But also at the very least, we can possibly just scale back one of the elementaries in my group in LBJ, because I think we're talking about the same elementary from the United South area in LBJ. And if anybody in my committee or in anybody else in the new construction committee would like to add on to that, I'd like to ask for some help.
Could I just make an observation that I think we need to be a little careful about the top 3 prioritizing process because, for example, the United South High School quadrant was extremely overcrowded, more so than, for example, Alexander. So it's just something that we need to take into consideration.
Even if we as a group, as a committee, would put all the top priorities from all the sections, and we as a group determine a certain number of what's most important from those, you're right. I think maybe some areas are more stressed than others, but it needs to be addressed somehow so that the final proposal that we submit as a committee to the voters is, I think, a little more palatable.
I'm sorry. Another possibility for, I think, good information for the whole committee, that we've heard from staff, that when it comes right down to it, there will more than likely be trimming, but they have ideas, they have background, and I know I've heard it from Enrique, I've heard it from Mike. Maybe you can address the concern, it's a very legitimate concern by Julio, about some of the projects that could possibly either be trimmed or eliminated, Mike, because of the detail that you know about.
And let me say this, Julio's brought up 2 important points that I think merit discussion. But we do have a motion on the floor to discuss the prioritization of the other 3 groups. And so I think let's stick with that issue first. Let's get through it and work through it, and then we can move on and hear these other 2 issues that Julio's raised. So at this point right now, the motion on the floor or that's been passed is to discuss whether to prioritize the other 3 subcommittees. And so
I would even go out a little further and say I'd like to make a motion that we approve the technology, safety, and additions as presented. I'd make that motion. If that would help, unless somebody else has something to discuss on that.
Now,
because I think Julio's right. The beef of this discussion is going to be the campuses.
Absolutely, that's the biggest chunk.
I'd like to try to get this moving on, and then that way we can focus all our energy on the discussions that they have in their committee. I'd like to hear what they have to say too. Is there anybody who's not in favor of that motion? I mean,
But can you clarify the motion, Orly?
That technology upgrades district-wide, safety and security upgrades district-wide, and additions and renovations district-wide be approved as presented.
Okay, so I'll take that motion. Does anyone want to second that motion?
My motion is
to approve. Okay. All in favor? Any against? Okay, so the motion passes. Thank you, Orly. All right, so we've got 2 issues that Mr. Garcia has raised. Do you want to make a motion for discussion on your first, whether there's been a double dipping on the elementary schools into these zones?
The first motion I'd make is just to clarify, at the very least, the elementary schools that both LBJ and United South have mentioned, and I think they are both in the Cuatro Vientos area. If that is the case, we could probably scratch one of those itemizations off, and that would potentially set us 60 million. So the motion would be clarification for that elementary, which would be priority 4 for LBJ, and I don't remember what priority was for United South. On the front.
Mr. Garza, Ricardo Villarreal, before you start,
Yes, sir.
I'd just like to elaborate on Julio's point.
The list.
I was part of the United South Committee, and our last priority was an elementary school. When we came up with this last priority, it was basically because there was a need for another elementary school, but pretty much there was maybe an excess of 200 students, and that's why that elementary school was put in. So therefore, when we discussed it between intergroups, we came up with somewhat of a conclusion that we can combine both elementary schools.
Yes, sir. Let me just clarify real quick, because we wanted to make sure that we did not have duplicated efforts in terms of whatever we're going to start for construction. Just real quick, just go over the items again real quick. LBJ High School is the new 9th grade campus, the new elementary school, which will help the Pettis, Centeno, and Roosevelt area. The middle school, I think, is where we're probably getting a little bit of some confusion, where we have the Cuatro Vientos area for the middle school, which would help Lamar Bruni, Los Obispos, and would help United South. That would be the shared middle school. However, we are looking at a middle school on the 359 area, which is, in terms of priority, that's a higher priority than the one in the LBJ area. That one in 359 would obviously alleviate the Gonzales and United South middle school areas. So it's just a matter, that's for the middle schools. And the elementaries, on the United South Middle School, we had the Cuatro Vientos Elementary as the lowest priority. That would help alleviate Orange, Reese, and Salinas. And then again, in the LBJ, we had an elementary that was designated, but that was further south from the proposed elementary that we're talking about as far as priority number 2 in that particular area. So it really does not have an overlap. Now, in the United High School in Alexander, we do have a circumstance where we build one, we don't need the other. And that, there is definitely that circumstance. But here, to be quite frank, we could use every single campus here. It's just a matter of priority what the committee wants to do.
Well, the reason why I made the motion is because since our fourth priority, realistically, there's no property available.
That's correct.
We want to do it for future purposes because we know that it's gonna be needed.
Yes, sir.
There's some pressure being needed.
Yes, sir.
All right, just didn't necessarily want to double dip in the same area. I know some are farther south and some are kind of like on the border.
Yes, sir. This particular location was further south of the Celito Lindo, so you're probably talking more, I mean, this is not a good example, not an accurate location, but more towards Maganahan Road, further. I do not have it with me here, but I'm sure, I don't even have the maps are, we don't have the EKI,
If I may make a point also regarding that LBJ priority for new elementary school, that could be, Mr. Garcia or committee, an elementary that could be removed because it's really more for a future.
That's exactly my point.
It's not.
The reason why we asked for it is because we knew that we're playing catch up. Like everybody said, it's going to be a necessity, but. I guess the point is, at least our point is new construction, and I think as a committee, we're going to see if we can try and
absolutely that
yes the things that aren't right now a necessity, try and at least be able to come with an appropriate number to give the taxpayers, give the voters. And
correct.
If that's something that maybe we can shave off, save 17 million around the bat, and make a motion to do that, but I'd like to open up for discussion, just to clarify, so everybody has a better idea. So if I need to just ask my group if they would be willing to drop that priority, that would be number one. The second thing is, the other thing I wanted to open up for discussion is, I think you're right, every one of these priorities is a priority. It's needed, but if we need to kind of shrink the number that we're asking for here, more likely going to come from reconstruction. And if anybody's open to some suggestions, I would ask for that. That's what I was saying, maybe we should ask for, maybe we should go by areas, by quadrants, and shave off the most important ones. Let everybody have a say as to how it is they want to open it up for discussion, possibly have to vote on it and have a motion and pass that.
Correct. I remember when your subgroup was looking at the enrollment, the elementary school at Cielito Lindo was the one that was really higher priority. It would relieve immediate overcrowded conditions. That other elementary school is not immediate need, and it could be pared down by removing that one from your recommendations.
If I may, Tony Padilla, for the record, following up Mr. Garcia's motion, would it be possible to build a middle school and an elementary on the 28 acres on the bottom left-hand side of your map where it says Mexico Avenue, and cut down, do some savings by building
Where it says the 20 acres, right towards the middle of the map itself?
No, actually,
The 28 acres.
28 acres.
That's for the ninth grade.
United South map?
United South on Route 20.
Okay, the 28 acres, that is the site located for the ninth grade campus for United South High School. So the additional 8 acres could potentially have space for an elementary school at that particular location, which is the one that's listed.
Priority 5.
Priority 5 under United South High School.
Is there a particular reason we want to build a ninth grade campus for United South away from United South High School?
That's a good question.
Well, that location is immediately adjacent to United South. It's 1 block away from the current United South High School. Those 28 acres are located a block south of the high school, very close to the campus.
If I may, would it be possible to convert the current United South Middle High School into a ninth grade campus and not necessarily have to build one that would accommodate that area?
Well, the enrollment that we have in all that area, I mean, we do need that middle school to stay there, and we need another middle school which is built, the one on the E.G. Ranch 359,
I guess the question
to address the overcrowded.
is it less expensive to convert United Middle School, United South Middle School to ninth grade and build a new middle school? Because a ninth grade, a brand new ninth grade campus is $40 million. Most of them is $38 million. And a middle school is $20 million.
Correct. 22 million.
22 million. So would it be better to build a new middle school and just spend $10 million and convert United South Middle into the ninth grade campus, which is adjacent, across the street from the existing campus?
Yeah, that's an option, definitely, that could be looked at, and
That way
renovation.
That way they can share the facilities of the United South High School.
Right.
We're getting back to that,
Of course,
having to
the
relocate athletic facilities and everything else.
that property where the committee was proposing this ninth grade campus, it's actually closer to United South High School than United South Middle School. But the idea is also to share some of those facilities at United South High School, like the band hall and the track, running track, and some of the other CATE facilities.
But
it's actually one.
already has all their athletic facilities, don't they?
They only have a practice field for the middle school, but we would have to, again, reconstruct a softball practice field, baseball field, other facilities, plus probably major renovations of all the science labs to get them to a ninth grade high school standards. It would be a major renovation of the entire.
Did we spend renovating the old high school when we converted it to the ninth grade campus?
Yes, yeah, that's an option that
How
can be
much
looked at.
did
Oh,
we spend?
we would have to look at the
We've already
numbers.
done it once, that's the reason I'm asking. We converted an existing school into the ninth grade campus, which was the old high school. How much did we spend to it?
We have to look at the actual building.
Yeah, it was already high school.
Right. Yeah, it's actually United High School was proper, adequate, more than adequate for a ninth grade. Yeah, because it was a high school, but at the middle school level, it would take major renovations. I mean, some of the general areas could be used, but probably everything else would have to be. We would probably spend anywhere from 60 to 75% of the cost of a new ninth grade just renovating the existing middle school, because the standards are all different. TA has some space requirements. Every classroom for high school's instruction has a large, different space, minimum space requirements versus a middle school classroom. So the middle school, actually all the classrooms would have to be enlarged. We have to really probably gut out the entire interior building to enlarge the classrooms to the adequate required minimum space for a high school classroom. They do have higher numbers than a middle school in square footage. So, but it could be done, but it will probably not be very cost effective.
I'm glad to hear that the land is right across the block.
It's a block south on Avenida Mexico.
So you're not going to have to bus people from the ninth grade campus?
Very minimal, maybe just the band and some of the facility, but everything else can be shared as far as some of the band facilities, track, Kate programs. So
how many acres are we allocating for the ninth grade?
20 acres for all four standard. It's more or less about the same as a middle school. Yes, sir.
We can certainly look at that as an option, but one of the things that I think is going to be also critical from a community-wide perspective is we're going to build a brand-new ninth grade campus at United High School, and a brand-new ninth grade campus at Alexander, and a brand-new ninth grade campus at LBJ High School. So I think in terms of a prototype, we'd have the same one built in every single quadrant, so nobody could say that this particular quadrant got a different configuration than a different one. So I think just from a equity standpoint in terms of everybody across the district, they would each get their own ninth grade campus that's a prototype and equitable across the district. Something to consider.
Eric Bowman for the record. I think we understand politics in the Finance Committee as well as anybody else does. One of the things that we discussed at length, and many of us on the Finance Committee agreed with, is the idea that the ninth grade campus are largely beneficial from an academic perspective. And we felt that the ninth grade campuses should be as close to proximity as to the high schools as we can, so we don't have redundant athletic facilities. All these kids are going to be playing different sports, and if they were all not dealing with a ninth grade campus, they would be using the same facilities anyway. And also felt that it was an effective use of taxpayer dollars not to build the redundant facilities. We're going to need to maintain all of those facilities anyway. So it made sense to many of us that those ninth grade campuses should be as far away from the high school to keep them separate, but as close to the high school so you didn't have to duplicate those efforts and we didn't have to do other things. We also understand that there's one high school where that is basically impossible, and that's Alexander.
That's correct. That's correct.
But we were looking at it from that way, and we thought that we could also save money that way, and that would be a more effective use of taxpayer dollars and would also be very beneficial from a taxpayer view looking at this bond.
And I think the critical item here is availability of land at the time that the item was being able to purchase. We're very fortunate at United High School to be right across the street from the high school, from the main campus. And LBJ High School would be catty corner from the far end of that particular campus. So we're very fortunate there. At United South High School, it's literally a block away. So that was the closest in a developed area that we could do that. So you're right, Alexander is the only one where we will have that distance. Try as we've tried hard to be able to purchase additional land next to Alexander, it's been very difficult for us. So we did the next best thing and be able to get it right down the street from where it's at right now.
Could I suggest something else going back to that issue? We've already heard more than once that this most recent graduation class from United, not only academically, but in many other ways, attendance, discipline, and all of that translates into dollars. I know attendance, for example, and that's something that community in general doesn't necessarily know. But it might be good for the district as we get ready to go out to educate, not only possibly to anticipate that question about why are you duplicating or why are you not close enough, have information also available about all the benefits which eventually translate into dollars when you increase attendance, when you reduce discipline, dropouts, and so on and so on. Another possibility.
And this is not an argument against
No, I
campuses. This is just an idea to achieve the ninth grade campuses, to make sure that all of the schools get their ninth grade campuses, but to do so and accomplish the goal at a minimum amount of money and already using the same facilities that already exist where we can save money on those. And that way, we get more bang for the buck. It's just an effective use of reduction.
Yes, I think the efficiency that we would be achieving or we're planning under this scenario is based on the 4 years, like Mr. Santos mentioned, of actual experience that we had with operating the United High School ninth grade campus. Now that obviously was a high school, and it had more facilities that were really necessary for a ninth grade. What we're doing on this, under this program, the most expensive athletic facilities on a high school are your tennis courts, your competition gymnasium, and your athletic field house and a running track. None of those facilities are included under this scenario of what we're proposing. So all these 4 ninth grade campuses would not have tennis courts, facilities that cost several $1 million. They would all actually go to the main existing high school to use all their tennis courts facilities, which is what's happening right now with the United ninth grade classes. They all are bused to the United main campus. So those facilities we already would be using very efficiently. The same with the athletic field house and the main competition gymnasiums. These ninth grade campuses will have more of a middle school type, small gyms, would not be able to house very large crowds. All those competitive games could be held at the main campuses. And then the running track is another item that we also did not include under this proposed ninth grade campus, so that students would have to go to the main campus. So there are the main athletic facilities that would be still shared by all the ninth graders at the main campus. And really for the coaches and the instruction, we shared information with them. That's really more efficient for them also to run their programs within one complex. The field houses is the other very expensive athletic. So what we would have at the ninth grade would just be the minimum for the athletic block or the PE classes and to run the daily programs.
Let me just add something real quick. The irony to all this is the current setup that we have, United ninth grade and the current United High School, is further than what we're proposing in the bond here right now. So with this bond, we're going to actually bring all the schools closer together. And it works. Right now it's working. We've had the success. We've had everything we talked about, and we're still busing kids back and forth, and it's working. So now having them closer with this proposed bond is going to make it more effective and more efficient across the board.
Yes. For the record, my name is David Cardwell. I want to make a couple of comments, general comments, before I say exactly what I feel about the new construction, because I was a member of one of the committees. First thing, I believe our objective and the challenge we have here tonight is to come up with a dollar amount. A dollar amount that will pass the ballot vote, the ballot box. And I've heard that mentioned a couple of times, the amount. And on the screen earlier, there was a slide put up there from 350 million up to 500 million. I think we should also realize, as it was stated to us earlier, this is not our one shot at this bond. Whatever we do this time, 2 years or 3 years down the road, we're going to have to go back. So instead of trying to maybe unload the whole truck at this time, maybe we should just unload part of the truck and then come back in 2 years. And also, I think another thing that we shouldn't do, I appreciate participating in this, but I'm definitely not knowledgeable enough to engineer what you professionals need to do. I think our job is to try to get you the money. And I'm not going to tell you where to put the school and how to build the school. You're the professional. So with that, leading up to that, I'm going to go back to what Julio said. I believe that 2 elementaries were duplicates because I was on one of the committees. So I say eliminate one of the elementaries. How much is that? 17 million. All right. I don't recall any committee putting in the high school and realizing we're going to have to come back in a couple of years. Eliminate the high school. That's about 80-some million. That gets us down to my motion. I move that we approve of this new construction portion in all these categories, which then will take us to a $400 million. So what you're doing is you're eliminating one elementary and you're eliminating that high school. That gets you down, I think, to a little bit over 400 million, I believe. If somebody can do the math.
360. Yeah, we'll get the total here for you.
All right. That's going to be my motion, eliminate one elementary, eliminate the high school. And if you can give me that figure, that would be my motion.
17,400. We're going to take the total and then subtract. Right. Minus 17K?
17,433.
433.
884.
884 minus
Minus
the high school?
The high school.
64.
64, 923.
923.
264.
264?
Right.
264 equals. That brings it down to, because we're just talking the elementary and the high school, that's it, right?
That's it.
So
Then
that,
the
from,
motion is whatever's left.
from the 488 that was discussed in the summary, brings it down to 415,344,283.
That's my motion.
Taxes.
Let's see if we can get to that last slide.
At that amount, Mr. Garza, at
Yes,
that
sir.
amount, can we use LIDA's projection up there? to
That's
see what
right
the
here.
amount-
Roughly, oh, you want to use the,
Yes, sir.
I don't know if I have that, because you need the tax rate exactly to be able to do the calculations. Okay. All right,
You want
14 and a half? We said 14 and a half? This is a good round estimate?
14, 14.5?
14.5. Again, that's the highest potential.
And the average house was 137?
137, just put 137. That's the,
$12.26 a month.
and again, this is an example of the average household, but let's just, let's put it up at a little bit higher amount, at 200 million. I mean, 200,000. Jesus. That person can afford the bond by themselves. There you go, yeah. It's a $5 difference. And keep in mind, the $18 is at the peak. That's at the fourth year when you sell all the bonds and it's the amount. The first year, you're probably looking somewhere around $3 or $4 at this scenario in the first year, your impact when you sell the first block of bonds. Yes, sir.
Oh, yes, Ben, for the record, I guess before we vote on that motion.
Was there a second?
Is there a second?
If there's not, is there a second? We have a second. All right, so we can discuss. All right.
Yours was just for discussion.
Basically, I opened it up for discussion. I didn't really make a motion officially because I think that motion probably clarifies it a little better than what I was saying. It addresses the elementary. It also addresses the high school, which we really, I don't think anybody ever talked about in the new construction subcommittee that had been divided into 4 groups. That was never mentioned. It's included, and I agree that it probably should be included in the final analysis for the bond amount, the proposal that we made, because the committee that was supposed to, I guess, include that in discussions never did. It's not proposed. I agree that we probably should take it out. So I will withdraw any motion that maybe I had made on the floor. I'll allow that motion to stand.
Okay, so before we take a vote and before we ask for a second, let's clarify Mr. Cardwell's motion. And my understanding is the motion is to approve the recommendation from the subcommittee, the new construction subcommittee, as recommended, less the new high school and less one elementary school.
Correct.
Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, do I have a second for that motion? Second. Okay, let me go ahead and open it up for discussion. And now that we have a second on the
Just
floor.
wanted to clarify, if, let's just say, for instance, if that motion passes, that means that we as a committee would be agreeing that a $415 million bond request will be floated out to the community development. Is that correct? Or incorrect?
Whatever the total number that...
Well, I think that it's probably an accurate statement that nothing more than 415 will go out to the community. It may be a little bit less, depending on what the circumstances are, but nothing more than 415 will go out to the community.
First motion is agreed to, everybody passes it. Basically, our job as a committee is...
You've given us the ceiling in terms of what is going to be available for a bond election.
But the numbers that would be floated out, asked taxpayers to vote on would be 410, 450 million, is that correct?
Well, I think we're making a recommendation. And so ultimately, it's going to be the board that's going to decide what the size of that bond.
Will we be passing just the top amount?
Well, I think the board, I would think the board has the flexibility to issue the bond that it feels like it should pass, but I think our job is to make a recommendation after looking at all the data. So,
Can I just, clarification, the motion, is there a motion already?
Yes. Yes.
But can we clarify, because you said an elementary, do you mean any elementary for the sake of the motion? You want to be specific about the elementary?
I think he's talking about the LBJ that we made in our recommendation, is that correct?
Right. Now, let's make sure that the motion is specific about which elementary, and possibly, well, there's only one person.
That's right.
And Julio, to answer that question also.
Yeah, we don't want to close down an existing high school.
Clarification for my motion, also my intent, was on this piece of paper here where it said 498,701,431 at the bottom, it would be changed to what my motion states.
Correct. All right. Any other let's keep talking about this because we're eliminating a big chunk of with the recommendation. So let's go through it.
Eric Bowman again. You said at the beginning that you had there were renovations that were not included due to the fact that you were building new institutions. Now we have a motion on the floor to delete 2 of them. What renovations then are triggered by not building the high school and not building the elementary school? What are the additional expenses of that?
We have no additional expenses. We've pretty much calculated for those particular, like the high school, for example, we're still building the 9th grade campuses. We're still, so it's going to alleviate all the existing high schools. So we're okay there. The new elementary was a future for future growth. So by building the Cielito Lindo Elementary, we're pretty much taking care of all the growth in that particular area today, alleviating the overcrowded situation today. So we're really not addressing any future potential growth, but at least those campuses have some breathing room to grow for the next couple of years.
Second question.
Yes, sir.
In terms of the high school that was to be built at the Mines Road.
Yes, sir.
What is the opinion of staff on the priority that they would affix to that school being necessary or not necessarily necessary in terms of the goals of the district?
Let me probably answer it in this manner. Typically, in our high schools, when you see an overcrowded situation is when you have portable buildings located at the campus. Currently, the current United High School does not have a single portable. The other item is we typically have a rule of thumb that we float teachers when we have more teachers or more staff than what the rooms allow for. And in that scenario at the high schools, we have a rule of thumb that we float at least 30 teachers before we start looking at adding additional portables. That's the rule of thumb in terms of staffing. Right now, United High School floats 0 teachers. So we have the potential for that amount of floaters and the potential for additional portables before we start looking at the additional high school. So again, I think Mr. Santos mentioned earlier, if we were to look at a high school on the Mines Road, the natural boundary, just the natural boundary from our geographic would be 35. So anything 35 to the west would be the new enrollment of the high school. And that currently is, like Mr. Santos mentioned, is about 1,500 to 1,800 students. But until we get to that point where we have the 30 floaters and the additional portables, then we can probably look at that, perhaps. Again, the other high schools currently are floating roughly about 30 teachers, and we have portables at those. But once you build the 9th grade campuses, then it kind of alleviates that situation as well.
Mr. Garza, if I may interject, once again, some of the concerns that I'm listening to is the lack of addition of a couple of the schools that we're living. The reason I want to bring this up is because it's going to take several years to construct all these buildings.
Absolutely.
It's going to take quite a while to do that. The growth rate of our students is skyrocketing as it is. And by us not passing the last bond issued 5 years ago, I think you give us a number, Mr. Garza, please correct me if I'm wrong, because y'all are experts at this. I want to say that the district grew by how many thousands of students?
Well, over the last 10 years since the last bond was passed, we've grown 10,000, so it's an average of 1,000. The last couple of years, which we believe because of the economic conditions, it didn't grow as fast. So we're probably averaging about 600 students per year on average. But we do forecast into the future, the next 5 years, we'll grow 4,000 students. So quite frankly, what's being recommended here is what should have passed in '07 to be able to catch up and give us some breathing room. And what was being recommended here is pretty much catches us up and give us a few more years, as Mr. Cardwell mentioned, gives us a few more years to potentially look at something in the future. But right now, we would alleviate the overcrowded situations that we have right now.
And I think as a district at the same time, we don't want to go out for another bond election in 2 years. We don't. I think as taxpayers, you would like to see this in 5 more years, but at the same time too, you'd like to see the schools constructed, and you also really want to see them in full capacity when they're built. If anybody's been, and I want to talk to the educators that are here, y'all are already at capacity, way past capacity. When these are built, you're going to be back in the same position again. I think we really need to consider that before we start eliminating some of these campuses. When you look at all the traffic up on Mines Road 1472, there's an amazing amount of traffic out there. I think just like my godson mentioned earlier, or I believe one of the other meetings, when you build that school, guess what builds around it? A lot of homes are built around it. A lot of students are built around it. And then we really consider that growth rate. I think all of us have been in a situation in a professional office where if you move into a new office and there's 4 employees and you got 4 offices, what's going to happen tomorrow? There's no room for growth. You're going to spend more money on the construction. We really need to consider those things before we start eliminating some of these campuses. Again, you all are the professionals, and I think we've had some very good information, some amazing information, and a lot of research we've put in together to say that I feel we should support what's being requested for the students and the youth of this community.
My name is Claire Vena, for the record. And if I'm correct, if we take away these 2 schools, as a regular taxpayer, it's only going to lower the payment per month at the end of the 4 years by $5.
Exactly.
So we're going to take away 2 schools and our potential for growth. And I live down Mines Road, and they're already building 2 new subdivisions. They're already building right now before any of this has even gone on. So for $5 more a month, I can ensure that there will be a school for when my children get to high school. Or for $5 less a month, my children can be overcrowded and jammed into the same schools that my aunts and uncles went to, you know, so. Am I understanding correctly, is it literally just $5 a month to take away 2 schools? I mean.
I think you got a good point. I think we really need to come up with that dollar figure if we can, staff, because you're probably not way too off, ma'am. And that is a very, very good, strong point. I think everybody here is a working class individual and can realize that $5 would cost by a couple of stores at the store can get you a couple more campuses.
Because I think it's what, I mean, I'm not a teacher, I'm just a parent. And if it was brought to my case in a dollar amount per month, you know, yes, I look at $500 million and I'm shocked. Like, oh my goodness, what in the world is happening for $500 million? But then I look at per month, it's only going to be, you know, oh, I only have to pay $17 a month. Oh, it's only $200 a year. That's doable. And if I look at that and it comes down to, you know, $50 a year or not as to what's a better education for my child. I mean, I think that that's minimal compared to what we're losing.
The scenario that we're showing before you, we had basically about 14 and a half cents on a $415 million bond at 500 million, and that was at $18 a month. At 500 million, this is what it would look like, basically $23 a month on a $200,000 home.
I think right there is something factor, though, when you look at that dollar amount. Very important.
I think what we also need to consider, Mr. Gatsa, is that the last time that this bond didn't pass, the cost for an elementary school was roughly about $12 million. Today, it's 17 million and change. So I think we need to look to the future at least 5 to 7 years down the road and address the factor today and not just put a Band-Aid on it and then address it in a couple of years.
Yes, Ben, quick for the record. I guess when the surveys went out to employees and certain people in the district, what was the amount that was floated, that was received, that people accepted? There was a 300 and something figure, correct?
Yes, sir. It was about 307 based on a scenario of a high school 4 elementaries, 3 middle schools, and the 9th grade campuses and an aquatic center as well.
Right. Now, although I agree with almost everything on here, the hard part is the public perception. And whether or not they think they need it, or whether or not it's $5 extra or their impact, the first sticker shock of it, in my opinion, anything north of 400 million would be difficult. Now, in working backwards from that number, as a committee, I didn't know if the committee was going to make a recommendation that we feel the bond should be in a certain range, say between 350 and 400 million, so it doesn't exceed that, and then backtrack from that. And I guess that's where Mr. Cardwell, removing the high school, removing an elementary school. Now, I don't know if we need to take it another step further, or if some other committee members also feel that the bond should be in a certain price range, that they feel they can sell it a lot easier than the price range that it is with the motion of 415.
I think what we can do is we can have a motion to modify the existing motion after we discuss whether there should be a range added to the motion, some sort of addendum to the motion.
If I may interject, maybe we should take a consensus real quick if everybody would consider looking at those few dollars more a month for those 2 campuses.
The only thing I'd like to add to that is, Richard, I apologize, Julio Garcia. Mike, how much was the bond amount in 07 that failed miserably?
399,
Okay,
400 million.
We lost every single precinct except for El Cenizo. I agree that $5 a month is nothing, especially if you want to establish a great future for your children. But the problem is, like Mr. Wiggis said, it's a sticker shock amount, and unfortunately, as well informed as we are, you can probably get this amount of people, multiply it by 50,000, and people will never understand or be able to grasp the fact they're only going to be paying a few dollars a month. They're going to see 400 million, and this bond will not pass. We know this because it's already happened. History shows us that a high bond request is not going to pass in this city anywhere except for El Cenizo. And you know what? They don't need any extra help. Their schools aren't filled to capacity. They're fine. They're covered. Everywhere else, we need some help. So before we vote on the motion, I would just like to remind the committee, the people that have been here, the people that have suffered in past defeats, like myself included, is that it has to be a reasonable amount that we can sell. We're hoping that common sense would prevail, that we can educate your average voter, your average UISD parent, your average teacher to say this is something that we need. If we don't get it now, we're going to be in serious, serious trouble. We will be a district with nothing but traders and portables. We have to float an amount that is reasonable. We have to look at past history and think, using that common sense, us as a group that has been well informed, float an amount that we think that we can sell. I agree. I wish we could pass a $500 million bond. It's just not going to sell in this community. Nobody's going to vote for it. We're just not going to get it. I'd like to see we can, together as a committee, come up with a reasonable number that we think that we can sell. I think that from the very beginning, that's been my main concern. I think everything that we are asking for, we need. Can we sell it? History shows that we can't. So before we vote on the motion, I think we should take everything into consideration, possibly either go to Mr. Cardwell's motion, either bring it down, allow the board to make a determination, come up with a reasonable factor between 350 and 400, I don't know. But that's why I was asking for some conversation, because I agree. And when you're here, you realize with all the research, with the videos, with the printouts, with the pie charts, it's fantastic, we need it, but guess what? More likely than not, we're going to be the only ones that are going to be this informed. We try as best we can to inform the public. But even at the last time, when we voted a $400 million bond, the state was going to match it, and we still couldn't sell it. It wasn't 400. and people were not informed, they didn't know, and it got shot down because you had a couple of powerful grassroots groups out there that killed it. We just need to inform ourselves to determine what is a reasonable amount. I agree it should be higher, it's just not gonna pass, that's my opinion. I'd like to float it out to everybody, but I would hope that before we vote on the motion, at the very least, those two schools really is nothing because it's prospective future. We're gonna have to come back here anyway, folks, probably within 5 years. We're catching up, but I don't think anybody in this room thinks that this is going to help probably pass the 5-year expectancy before we have to come back and revisit schools and crowding and things of that nature. So that's what
Let me,
I appreciate those comments, Julio, because that was what I was thinking about, and I was sort of working towards somewhere between $385,000 and $400, but I just landed at the $415 when we did the subtraction. I cannot, in my mind, agree with you. Yes, I'd like to have the $500 million, but it's going to be voted down. The $415 million might even be a stretch. And still, I'm on the stand by the motion, unless there's consensus, we go lower, but I was looking at $385 million to $400 million. But again, my motion stands.
can I just provide some 2007 perspective real quick? The $399 million included 6 elementary schools, 4 middle schools, 4 ninth grade campuses, an aquatic center, a arena. I don't think it was in there. No, the administration was not in there. Was it? Well, I guess what I'm trying to put into perspective is we had more schools in 07 for $309 million. Fast forward 5 more years, we have less schools for $415 million. So just the inflationary factor, less schools, puts us in that perspective. So again, 415, the amount of schools that we're talking about is less than what we were talking about in 2007. And again, we provided. That's right, that's right. And keep in mind, here what we're talking about is 100% schools. In 2007, we had some other auxiliary buildings that, to be honest with you, fueled the fire on the opposition. And now, all we're talking about is schools. That's it.
Well, I understand Julio's perspective because we worked on that 2007 bond issue. But I think this is more than about going back to what is history. Because what is history in 2007 is that as well informed as we might have been as a committee, there was little to no real community outreach. And I'm not faulting anyone, but that's bottom line what happened. The community did not understand it because the community in general was not informed. We're rewriting history. We've talked from the very beginning about, first of all, we all knew when we walked in here that it's not only needed, it is desperately needed. And as you've already heard, I mean, you know too, no fluff, no natatorium, as lovely and wonderful as it might have been, none of the above, nothing but school buildings and security and technology. And so, again, I'm going to come back again to, yes, it's going to be, more than likely it would be a tough sell, but I think we're going to rewrite history. We're going to educate the community. That's my point.
Elvin Sherman for the record. I was here in 2007 at the beginning, so I don't really know much about the previous bond. But when it comes down to dollars and cents, I have a selling back. You're talking $23 per month, correct?
Yes, sir.
Less than 7 cents a day? Really? You can piece this together and say, hey, for $350 million, $399, we can eliminate this and get this. You can buy a can of pork and beans, no name bread, you can get something that's going to last you for 5 years. You shouldn't be looking at a 2-year Band-Aid. You should be forecasting for a 10-year, 5 or 10-year plan. You know, with all the oil companies coming in here, they're bringing families, they're bringing business, they're bringing kids, they're bringing everything for the long term, not just a 1-year or 2-year thing. is, to me, rather an easy sell. Maybe because I have that selling background. A dime a day for a 4-year bond. Am I correct, 4 years?
Yes, sir.
Are we really gonna sweat this? We're talking about eliminating the 5 cents? That's all I'm gonna say. We can do this.
One of the things also, just for clarification, the 415 million, if you extrapolate out the 70 million that we're talking about, that's technology and security and so forth, that, puts you down to 300 for new schools. In other words, what we're talking about for new construction is really about 350, to put it down into perspective right there.
Yes, Ben Quigg again. I still, I think everybody in this room is here because we're all, I think, in the same boat. And, those issues aren't an issue to us, but to all the voters out there, I think they are. And I still don't know what that number is that we're trying to get to. And if we know that number, and we already know, we already had a motion, I believe it passed, to keep the 70 million, well, we already know that number's there. So what number are we trying to get to? Are we trying to get to 350, 375, 400? And if that's the number, then we can work back. So,
I guess right now there's a motion on the floor for 415 million.
right. That's where we are now. So my question was, as a committee, is everybody comfortable with 415 million? Or is there another number out there that the committee is more comfortable with? So, if I...
I think they said the board will still have the opportunity.
That's correct. I mean, just to explain the process, I'm sorry.
Go ahead. They can actually try and book a lesser number of
There's 2 steps additional that before it gets to the board. Whatever this committee is recommending will go to the steering committee. That steering committee could also make some adjustments, but we know that this committee is saying that it won't go more than 415. So that...
But I guess our role in this is, if we approve the 415, well, then that gives the steering committee and the board the ammunition to go with 415, even though maybe not all of us are in agreement that 415 should be the number floated out. So if we come in with a lower number, say 385, the steering committee can still say, well, we need to add something else more in, it can still go a little bit higher, correct?
And ultimately the board could make that decision as well.
Right.
So you still have 2 more steps where there potentially could be some reductions from this amount, but the committee is saying that no more than 415. That's.
Mr. Garza, Ben, if I may, I think
Right, that's the motion.
That's the motion.
There's a motion on the floor.
Yes.
And I think the question, I had to walk away and clear my mind and think. Right now, as you vote, and I think I'm supporting Ben in that, let's find out. When you vote, do you believe that a bond of 450 million is going to pass, yes or no? And that should be the decision when you vote right now. Because that is a responsibility that's been given to us. Our responsibility is to come up with a recommendation, as Mr. Carpel said, of amount. And our responsibility is to say, is this possible? And when you vote, that should be, answering Ben's question also is, do we believe that a bond issue of $450 million will pass or not? Because that's actually what we're here for.
But is it, we're gonna vote as the 500 million? Yeah, no. Are we gonna vote for the 500 million or the 415? Because we haven't brought it down to 415. We haven't voted on it. Right, yeah, but we need to vote on that first.
That's correct. And if it passes, then we are proposing $415 million bond.
I guess the other point is what if it doesn't pass the 415? If we do make a motion and pass 415, or even if it's 400 or 385, what if that bond doesn't pass? And that's the other side we need to look into, because a lot of us are in agreement. Well, $30 a month, whatever our impact is. Here we're all in agreement that that'll work, but when we go out, we have to make sure that this bond gets passed. So I don't know if we have the luxury of stretching it. So, my 2 cents.
Tomas Rodriguez for the record.
who's the teacher in here? Just raise your hand. So I'll just tell everybody who's not a teacher, welcome to our world. We don't have that luxury to say, well, what if this kid doesn't pass? We have to make that kid pass. Yeah, well, he can't learn that way, but we have to make him learn. We have to teach him, and we're going to make him learn. We're going to teach him using different strategies. We're going to do different things to make sure that they learn. When that tax test first came out, all they had to do was get 19 out of 55 right. It moved all the way up to 30. They kept raising the bar and raising the bar and raising the bar every single year. It is our duty, everybody in here, to sell it. Your duty is to do what we do as teachers every single day. Teach. Go out there and teach. Tell them all, this is what has to be done. Explain it. But we're teachers. Everybody in here, whether you like it or not, you're a teacher, and you have to make it pass. Think of this bond as a student, make it pass.
All right, any further discussion? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to ask for.
Do you have a projection of when the next bond, you would need the next bond, and if it's 500, if it's 400, if it's 350? I think that's...
In the future?
In the future, because I remember talking about it, the new construction, that even at the 500, we were just coming up to par. You know, so we still weren't going above and beyond. So I wanted that out there. So there was still some sort of growth that we needed to account for in 4 or 5 years. We might be back in this thing, but even if it gets past that 400, we might still be back in this position 4 years from now. So that's where the half of the truck, if you want to empty it now, whatever.
Sure. I will tell you that in 2007, we actually, maybe I'm being biased, we actually planned accordingly to catch up and plan for the future. So to be quite frank with you, had that passed in 07, we'd be here right now today, probably a smaller amount. We didn't need as many schools. One of the things that happened out of the 2007 defeat is we were able to look at adjustments where we thought places would grow and they didn't, and where we thought places wouldn't grow and they did. So we're very fortunate to be able to have this opportunity to be able to plug those holes now. So to answer your question, we've worked so hard and worrying about this bond election that we haven't really focused on the future in terms of what our future growth is going to be. But we know where master plans are being done. We know where plats are coming in. We're working very hard with the city to be able to do it. But I think that we've done a pretty good job in making sure that we're covering all our bases, at least for the next 3 to 5 years from what we have. Things could accelerate faster than what we anticipate. That could happen. But, you know, when we get to that point, we'll probably have a better understanding. Right now, it's probably too far into the future to be able to think about where we need new locations. Yes, sir. Too far into the future, at least. Yes, I mean, we're hoping that we can, you know, like I said, are we ever, truthfully, ever going to get rid of portables? That gives us a flexibility that when areas grow faster than we anticipate, we can start moving items out there to give us that breathing room until we can get another bond election.
You know, the comments that were made right now about the teacher, I mean, that was a neat little spin you know, there. And I agree. But just remember that when we first started this, Mr. Gilpin stood up here and he said the most important person that we have to get up to believe and promote this are the teachers. That was said at the very beginning of all this, and I think you brought it together towards the end. But that sheet, the speaking sheet, every teacher should have signed it already. Be on there. You're going to get the call to speak on radio, in public, everything. Because the teachers, I believe here tonight, have spoken what their feelings are. So let's bring this all together, step up. Because when the bond happened the last time, you know, did the teachers step up? We need your help this time. Because I think you hear from, let's say, the business community, how we're a little bit more negative, you know? That positive vibe needs to be there by the teachers. So step up and help out for us that are possibly in a negative state, which I am, I agree with, you know, so I'm just.
Just to clarify, we may need to just justify what the law is regarding teachers speaking on bonds in the district. I don't know if they can actually speak on that. I don't know what the rule is, but it's my understanding that they may not be able to speak.
You mean Sonia didn't tell you this before? We'll clarify that before we let anyone.
She'll tell you later. She'll tell you later.
All right, so I think we're ready to vote. Okay, and so let me go ahead. Unless we have any more discussion, I don't want to stifle any discussion because this is important.
I was here in the last one that didn't pass. I would hate to see this one not pass. If it didn't pass at 399, I'm really scared that we would try to pass it at 400 or something. From a teacher's point of view, I would just like to tell the board to keep this in mind. Nobody has asked the teachers if they even want these smart boards. And I know everyone was very excited about that smart board, but I'm a math teacher. And I can tell you that my son would never have learned how to draw that graph by looking at it the way it was. It was awful. I would never want one of those in my child's classroom. And we haven't even gone out to ask the teachers if they want to use them in their classrooms, yet we're willing to spend all this money, which I think adds up to 1 or 2 elementary schools. So, board, when you're trying to cut down on some of this stuff, I want you to keep this in mind. I think that here in Laredo, we put way too much emphasis on pretty buildings. And as a taxpayer, I hate to, as a taxpayer, United High School is beautiful. But did we really need for it to be that beautiful? Did we have to put that much money into it? Did we really? I worked at another place, someplace in Virginia in the 90s. And in that school, we had more national merit scholars than anywhere in the nation. And we had, that whole place was like a big warehouse. I did not have walls to work in. It is not the things that you put in the classrooms. We are forgetting, we're thinking that good education is this beautiful building. We had no walls. We had partitions in just about every school at that district, yet we had the most national merit scholars. You know, kids could go through the halls and just go with a pencil like that, and you go like, ow. I had no desk. It was pushed against the wall. The kids were sitting in little desks. No one ever complained. We had great instruction going on. So it's not really the buildings. I think that here in Laredo, as a taxpayer, I say, why are you shutting down that school? What's wrong with it? Because the great instruction is the teacher. You know, and when you're looking at how much money you're putting into those buildings, do we really have to put $87,000 into a high school? Do we really have to put that much into a middle school? I mean, look at how much you don't need that stuff to have great instruction. But I really would like it if you looked into the technology, because I can tell you right now, as a teacher who worked with the United ISD for over 20 years, as a teacher, we pretty much had nothing. I don't know where the technology, millions of dollars, goes to at this district, because it's not coming to the teachers. And those of you who are teachers in this room, you know it. Our hands are tied. We pretty much don't know anything. I'm scared to death of having one of those and not being able to use it. And look how much money you're going to put into it. How many millions of dollars are we going to put into this? And we all voted for it. We haven't even asked the teachers. Who's going to use it? How good is it? I'm telling you that from what I saw, we all were clapping. I wasn't clapping. I was like, oh my God. That's how they want to teach math to our kids? So I just would like for you to look at the technology part. Maybe you can cut some of that out and get it under 400,000. Yeah, 400 million. Get it under 400 million.
Just for example, the new high school, I think we built it for, did it get 52 million? And that was, I know in the new construction committee, we were able to discuss it in very fine detail, that same school at another community would probably cost over $80 million. Or just from a cost per square footage perspective, we were about 30% less than other communities. The reason we build prototypes is that, number one, costs are less, and number two, it's equitable across the district. Nobody can say that they have a nicer school than the other side of town. So I think those are important perspectives. And then when we actually clump them together to build 6 at a time, the economies of scale for us were incredible. So those same schools in other communities would almost be 30 to 40% more in those circumstances.
All right, let's go ahead and vote then. And what I'm going to ask for is the yays and then the nays and whether there are any abstentions. And I will ask everyone to participate in at least one of the three, okay? And if we need to take let's go ahead and start with the vote then. We'll start with the yays. I'll ask all the yays to raise their hand. Sure, let's repeat let's clarify the motion. Let's repeat the motion. The motion, as I understand it, is a motion to accept the recommendation made by the new construction subcommittee, less the high school that was proposed today, and less the elementary school in United South. I'm sorry, LBJ.
I'm sorry. What is it again? Yeah, the elementary and LBJ.
Elementary and LBJ. It's unnamed, and it was the last priority, my understanding.
Yes,
right, and no property. There isn't any property that's been allocated for that elementary school.
Elementary by itself.
I'm sorry.
Start with the property by itself. The 17 million for the property for the elementary. Let's start and vote for that one alone.
Well, the motion right now is to that Mr. Cardwell proposed is to pass the bond. I'm sorry, to pass the recommendation less those two items. In other words, the elementary school, less the elementary school. That's the motion. So that's what we're going to vote on. Okay? Any other questions about the motion?
Just real quick, as a matter of procedure, if they could just leave their hands up so we could take a count.
Yes, and they've asked me, Mike's asked that we please keep your hands up during the vote so we can keep track. Go ahead.
And the motion is that it's, we put it at 415, Mr. Cardinal, is that correct?
Let's clarify, Mike, what the number's going to be. The total number?
I show it to be $415,344,283. Again, emphasizing that this is the ceiling. The board, the committee and the board could make an amount that's less than that. So, okay? So let's not, I don't want everybody to think it's all gloom and doom. I mean, there's several opportunities to be able to look at this again.
And also to answer, Ms. Hidalgo, also, the board is going to change, like, some of the recommendations that we made could be eliminated. For example, I'm just saying, like, for example, she talked about the digital interactive panels. Something else could be purchased, but the ceiling would be at 415. Is that what we're voting on?
That's what you're recommending. Legally, there's no ceiling. It's a recommendation, so we could go up or go down. But I'm one board member, but I can tell you the board is probably very uninclined to pick a number that is higher for this committee, and I would assume the steering committee is probably very uninclined to do that. So most probably the number will be a ceiling.
Okay. All right. All in favor of Mr. Cardwell's motion? I'd like to see a show of hands.
Seven on this side?
25? 25. All right. Okay. All right, and those, okay, now let me see a show of hand against the motion. 19, okay. And those against, I'm sorry, abstaining, those abstaining. I need to see everybody's hands if you didn't vote either for or against. If you're abstaining, okay. All right, so the motion had 25 yeas and 19 nays, so the motion passes. All right.
Can I ask the steering committee, just when you present to the board, that you let them know what the vote was, just so they can see how it goes?
And it'll be reflected in the minutes. The vote will be reflected in the minutes as well, okay? I think that, well, according to our agenda, we have a period of public comment before we close the meeting. So we'll go to the next agenda item and allow for any period of public comment that anybody has. We'll ask you to stick to the agenda items that we discussed today, and I'll invoke the 3-minute rule as well. Do we have any further public comment? No? Okay.
Yes, I got a point.
Go ahead, Mr. Cardwell.
David Cardwell for the record. I like to see democracy in action. And I want to go back to what Orley said, Mr. McGuire said a moment ago. Regardless if you voted for this motion or you voted against it, I appreciate that there's 2 more levels that the board and the executive committee can look at this. So I am relieved, I am relaxed with the motion. I am okay the way it went, because it may go down or it may go up. It's got 2 more levels, so I am comfortable, and I thank you.
I appreciate that, Mr. Cardwell. We have one more order of business, and that is the minutes from the last meeting. They've been circulated to the steering committee, and I'll take a motion to approve the minutes. Do I have a second? Okay, all in favor? Any against? No. Okay. And I do want to thank everybody's participation.
Hold up. I'd like to, sorry to interrupt. Before everybody departs, I'd like to get a couple of things in front of you. One of them is the Citizens Bond Committee Speakers Bureau Subcommittee form. If you want to sign up on that, I just want to remind you, we have it up here. You can come up and sign up.
Yeah, they're also there.
Okay. All right, if you'll look for that. The last thing, though, is one of the biggest things. I was hesitant to make a comment while there was discussion a while ago to this effect. I couldn't decide whether it was the appropriate thing to do or not. I was trying to decide whether or not it's just my personal belief, or as a board member I should say this or what. But my thought is that a lot of energy was put into deciding what people will vote on. And what we really needed most of all was deciding what you think should be voted on, what you really believe in. And I kind of think, for the most part, we got that. I think there's some hesitancy on the part of some people that voted against it related to trying to guess how the public will vote based on things that have happened in the past. There are a number of things that are different this time, so you can't pick only one thing and say that's the reason. You know, it's kind of like the movie The Jerk when they were shooting at the cans. I don't know if I'm dating myself there on that one, but anyway, it's not necessarily the cans, okay? So what I would suggest, though, for the benefit of this process, is that those of you that had misgivings about what we passed right now, please communicate with us. We need your input. So please get with us individually and make sure we understand what it was that you were thinking wasn't quite right about this, and maybe we can make a little bit more adjustment. But don't let your voice on this, go quietly by. We want to hear from you. So I'm one of 7 board members, and I know we're all eager to hear from you. So please get with us and let us know, all right? And if you'd like to participate, again, I remind you on the Speakers Bureau, please sign up. Thank you all very much for your participation. We greatly appreciate it.